back with another episode of the Tuning In podcast, where we explore a wide range of topics to inspire and inform. I'm your host, Jay Wells. As always, I'm here with my homie mixed man Sean. Sean, say what's up to the people.
What's up, people? How we doing?
Hey, today we have a truly inspiring guest with us, U.S. Air Force Commissioned Officer Brian Gooch. Brian has an incredible story. It's marked by dedication, service, and leadership. We'll be diving into his journey, exploring experiences that have shaped him, uncovering principles of leadership that have guided him through his career. So whether you're interested in the military, leadership, or just hearing about a life lived with purpose, this episode has something for you. Sit back, relax, let's get to know BG. Sir, welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, what's going on, Jay Wells? Sean, I appreciate y'all for having me, man.
Welcome.
Yeah, no, it's good. You know, it's kind of been a long time coming. And
Yeah, no doubt.
yeah, no, I definitely appreciate y'all for having me, man, and just let me share what I got. Everybody's got their own thing that they can share their own perspective. So you know, just here for it, here to learn and share as well. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. This was pretty exciting. You know, Sean and I started our podcast adventure back in March, and we had a short list of people. And actually, you and I had talked on the side, and you were working on your own project and things around the same time. So, you know, that actually was a motivator for me. And, you know, byproduct of that, Sean being my teammate here with Tuning In, you know, you influenced us already before you even came up on the show as a guest. So you were on the list. We're glad to have you. So let's dive into it. You sent me something super interesting. So before we get into your journey, I want to hear your thoughts on this clip that you sent me. It says, "What is coming is better than what is gone. Let this belief aim you in the direction you need to go," by Karen Salmansan. What was your thoughts on this? What was the spark here?
So you know, man, not to get too philosophical, but I always tell people, man, like you can't change the past, change the future. You know, we've all been through stuff that have shaped us, good or bad, but there's learning along the way. And you know, with that, it is always, you know, things. If you're doing what you need to do, taking the steps you need to take, you know, I believe things work out how they should.
Yeah.
I may not have always believed that, but I do believe that in my life, that, you know, as long as we're doing what we're supposed to do, things will work out. So, you know, it's one of those, yep, you may be going through turmoil, you may have been through turmoil, but focus on where you want to be, where you want to get to, I think is important. And that can continue to drive us to where we want to go. So
No doubt.
even though you might have been through rough waters, you know, there might be still seas ahead.
Hell yeah. Hey, how do you think you came to that conclusion of thinking like that?
Really just, you know, just changing my mindset toward, you know, I think as humans, we focus on innately, we are programmed to survive. I think just at our roots of our DNA, our brains are geared toward things for survival. I think, you know, life is more about than just surviving. It's just about living. So I think for me, the big shift is just trying to focus on the positive things, trying to focus on things I can't control, believing in myself, believing in what I'm here to do, believing in my ability to help others. And to me, I don't think there was really a light bulb moment. I think probably sometime in my 30s where I was like, yeah, this is kind of my trajectory. Like here's where I want to go. Here's where I want to be. And then just taking that leap of faith, I guess, and just believing in yourself and, you know, changing that mindset to, yeah, it might be scary. Yeah, it might be difficult. Yeah, people might point and laugh, but you know, you got to do what you know you need to do.
Hell yeah. Got to do what you know you need to do. Love it.
Yeah.
Big Sean. How you feeling, Sean?
Good, man. Good morning to y'all. It's still early out
That's true.
here.
On our side. That's
Yeah,
good stuff.
I like that, man, because let me just start off by saying thank you for your service, both of you guys.
Cool.
Thank you.
And yeah, so I like so basically what it's like the position you're in, like you have a choice. So depending on the choice you make, the outcome is, you know, you can expect to get a good outcome if you make a good decision. So like being in that position, so the past is gone, but you're here, but you have this experience from the past. Like, you know what I mean? If you've been paying attention, you can make a little difference in your journey.
Yeah. Learning the
Right?
Yeah,
lesson.
that's true.
Paying attention's,
Yeah.
I think, something that is crucial in those moments. You know,
Yeah.
catching those finer details and things. You know, everybody goes through their life journey, you know, and that's something that we'll talk with BG here in a moment. And I think
Yeah.
catching those details, get the lessons from that is not always happening in real time, you know. Yeah,
Yeah.
you might catch that lesson later down the road when you either incur another instance similar occurs, or you know you're going through something and you just reminded of that event. You can shape your future based off the lessons of your past. So
Yeah. And I think if I can jump in, I think
sure.
that if you don't get the lesson, life's going to give you another chance to get it.
Yeah, that may
And
be true.
you might fall on your face again, you know, and if you don't get it that time, guess what? You get another chance to fall on your face or fix it.
No doubt.
So yeah, that paying attention thing. And then again, sometimes we don't see and I'm not as serious as I seem right now, but you know, sometimes we don't get to see the fruits of our labor immediately. Like you
Yeah.
said, sometimes it's down the line and you think back like, damn, you know, I was going through this, or you know, these things that I've seen, and now I'm in a similar scenario, and it's like, oh, yep, now I know what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And it might not be same, like you said, it might not be real time. It might be down the line. It might be 10 years later, and you're like, wait a minute, I've been through this before. I've seen this before. Here's how I need to navigate it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, no, I agree with you, man. You're right. And that paying attention is key.
That's dope. I'm gonna share that. I'm gonna share that clip that you sent me on our page, and I'll put it in
Okay,
the. I'll put it on our Facebook and Instagram, and do some reels and stuff when we put this episode out. It'll be good to
nice.
kind of draw in on some of this conversation. But you know, I think it would be good for people to hear your story. You know, I've known you since I think about 2006,
Yeah, man.
2005. One of
Oh
those.
five, oh six. Yeah.
I was a
Wow.
baby airman back in my first duty station when I first met you, and you were one of the people that kind of showed me professionalism, and sparked a different thought process for myself. So, you know, before we get into the Air Force history for your story, I'd like to know a little bit more about your background, where you're from, and how you came up, and what got you
Okay.
to that point. Before we
Yeah.
dive into the career stuff, could you
All
share
right.
with us?
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, absolutely. And don't be lying, man. I wasn't professional in Korea. No, I,
Whatever.
I tried my best. I was young though, you know, the young guys do dumb stuff. Young people do dumb stuff.
Yeah.
So
Facts.
yeah, so for my life, man, let me start it. So I was born in Reading, Pennsylvania. It's a small city. The closest big city is probably Philly, you
Yeah.
know, hour and some
Okay.
change from Philly. Um, very, very East Coast vibe type of town. Um, a lot of people where I lived either came from New York City or were going to New York City.
Hmm.
Very diverse culture there, which seems odd because you know a lot of people think Pennsylvania, you know, how diverse can it be, especially if you're not from that side of the map.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot, I mean, the heavy, heavy Hispanic community, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Dominicans, Mexicans. I mean, like the gamut, and
Dang.
which was odd because outside of town, no lie, there was Amish kids riding horses. So, I mean, you for real, you could go to the
The
corner
Amish
store
are a trip.
downtown and drive 15 minutes and go to the Amish farmers market. Like,
Bro,
you know,
who
so
has
it
the
was,
best ice cream in the world?
you already know it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I started there, man. Shoot, and that, you know, I've lived a lot of places in my life, but you know, starting there, there's some good and bad to it.
Yeah.
A lot of gangs, a lot of violence, a lot of drugs. So
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
say that right out the gate.
Sheesh.
Um, so you know, I lived in a house with 8 people, some step siblings, step parent, my dad. Um, I got 3 brothers, 2 sisters,
Yeah.
some step, some half, right? Um, so I lived with them. Well, I grew up with my mom, so I was about 7, and then from 7, and then on, I lived with my extended family. They're all my brothers and sisters, though I wouldn't call them, you know, he's my stepbrother, he's my stepsister. I don't
Yeah.
call
Yeah.
them that. They're my brothers and sisters. Um, but you know, so the dynamic outside the house was the things that I learned growing up were a lot more of just um, I would never say I was like a street guy, but
Yeah.
very much street mentality, street rules, if you will. And sometimes I tell people now as I've gotten older, you know, what I learned when I was a kid was like prison rules,
Hmm.
which is, you know, I didn't realize that was not normal till really till I joined the service.
Yeah.
Um, and just the things that you learn and see, it's like, wait a minute, like somebody disrespects you. It, Option A is talk about it. Option E is they have to die.
Yeah,
And
it's
and
true.
that's crazy to say that out loud, but um,
Yeah.
that was kind of the rules that, I didn't realize that wasn't normal. So I joined the service. And I'm like, wait, you can't kill people for disrespecting you. Like,
Yep.
what do you mean? And not to make light of it, but that's just kind of the
Oh, I
the
know.
the
It's the
crazy ends of it.
that it draws out a laugh because of how extreme it is,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I think we can kind of I both know Sean and both and he and I both can kind of relate to that because
yeah,
it's so true. It's like, damn.
Yeah.
yeah. And you don't, but you don't know that that's not normal if you're living in it. You're
Yeah.
like, no, this is the way.
But
Um,
that
so,
extreme level anger, like,
oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then just, living in that environment of, dealing with those things. And so that was outside my home. Now, inside my home, um, strong family values that were taught to us. My father was a minister for some time
Hmm.
during my upbringing. So I think he tried his best to keep us off the street for the most part. He did a
Yeah.
good job with that. Um, and my stepmom, credit to her and my mom as well. But and then also, my dad would have church sometimes at our house downstairs. So if the East Coast homes, like the storefront at the downstairs and then
Yeah.
upstairs is the house. That's kind of what we
Gotcha.
lived in.
Okay.
We didn't have a store, but we moved into that house, and we would and we were poor. I'll say that. My new shoes a lot of times are my brother's old shoes,
Yeah.
um,
The hand me
and that's
downs.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That's
life.
that's what we do.
Um, but we also had, I was thinking about this actually last night. We also had, as poor as we were, through the church, we had a food bank at our house.
Mm.
So, we would give out food to folks that, were doing a lot less
Yeah.
as well. And I didn't know that as a kid, but as an adult, I'm like, man, we were scraping, but we still at least were like, hey, you can come if if you don't have food,
Yeah.
no lie, like you can come to the house and we got a food bank. Like we would give out food. My dad would sometimes house folks that didn't have like a place to stay.
Yeah.
Which in hindsight, as a dad, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of crazy, dude. You got homeless people living in the house, but nothing. At least for me, there was ever never nothing weird. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes they smelled, but it was what it was.
Yeah.
Um, so there, I'll say in that city, I kind of learned. Uh, that was my upbringing. Um,
Yeah.
I lived on the south side of town. I got South Sixth Street. I got a tattoo on my arm.
Mm.
Um, and that's kind of where my upbringing was. I had good teachers. I'll say that I had really good teachers.
Yeah.
I think that they tried their best in the city they were in. I can't imagine being a teacher there. But I do appreciate a lot of them because they were a big help. They genuinely cared. They wanted to teach. I'm sure they weren't getting paid nothing to teach in that city
Yeah.
because there just wasn't money there.
Yeah.
The big money at the time was the people that are from around that area. There was a big outlet center in the city. It was like
Mm.
a square block of outlets. And you can go get everything super cheap. So everybody worked there.
Yeah.
And there was some factories. Historically, a lot of folks, like, if you didn't work at the outlets, you worked at the factory.
Yeah.
Well, they shut down the factory and then the outlets burned down.
Oh,
So
damn.
what's everybody doing for work?
Yeah, that's a big
Um,
transformation.
yeah, huge for the city. So yeah, so school, I lived there until up until eighth grade. So that's
Okay.
where I lived in Reading. Um, and I share a quick story, not to make it too serious or morbid, but
No, that's good.
there were shootouts in front of my house. A guy died on my front porch. He's alive now, but he got stabbed at a phone booth, and he said
Yeah.
he looked down the street. The East Coast. He looked down. You could see down the whole street. He said he looked down the entire street. He said the only light he saw was coming from our house. So he came to our
Yeah.
house, uh, rang the doorbell. He had got stabbed up. He got cut up pretty bad. Um, he died on the porch. He came back too. He died 4 times, I think 3 or 4 times.
Jeez.
Um, and on our porch, he's still alive. He's doing all right. Dad called the ambulance and they took care of him. So there's that extreme. So I go from that, and then my dad worked in a factory. He worked
Yeah.
in a tannery actually where they tan leather.
Oh wow.
Super dangerous work, man. Like working with acid and stuff. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I guess some dude like fell into acid and they never found him. Like just like super
Jeez.
dangerous work, man.
Yeah,
Damn.
industrial environments have so many
Yeah,
hazards.
dude, no joke. So
You know
he
what's
was always
crazy, boss? Real quick.
go ahead. No, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
They'll take the same piece of leather, bro. They'll put a Gucci thing on it and be like $5,000.
Yep,
The same one they
yep.
use to just make a
Yeah,
belt.
my bad. My bad. I have to throw in my 2 cents.
No, you're good. That's true. Yeah, it's and or they'll take a piece of that and sell it at Walmart, and it'll be nine
Yeah.
bucks. You
Yeah.
Yeah.
know, uh, which is crazy. So my dad was always good with computers.
Hmm.
So I might be getting this story wrong, but I think I have it right. So he ended up getting a job offer to do computer stuff out in Ohio.
Okay.
So it was a decent pay raise because he wasn't making nothing at the factory. So they were like, "Hey, we're moving to Ohio." And I'm like, "Man, I don't want to move to Ohio." Like I was like, "I'm gonna stay in the city." You know, all my friends were
Yeah.
there. My mom was
So
there.
this
Like
was
all
like
the
eighth
same guys
grade,
I had
right?
been
So
going to
you're
school.
eighth grade, you're like 13, 14 years old.
Yeah, 12,
That
13. I think over the
dude,
summer.
that's so
Yeah. So
tough to leave everything you love, your
yeah,
homies.
Yeah.
and I've been in the same city my whole life.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Like
man, I remember even as a kid, I was like, man, I might stay because my mom still lived in the city. I was like, I can go live with
Yeah.
my mom. And I was torn for a while. I don't remember when I decided, but it was late in the game because my dad's like, hey, look, man, if you want to stay, you can stay. Like it's your mom, but like I'm moving to Ohio. Like we have to move for my job. Um, so I remember just being like torn, and it's crazy because when we left, it was like the movies, man, like where my friends were chasing us on bikes
Oh
down the
yeah.
street. I swear, if I had a video camera, like, yeah, like all my homeboys like riding out on their bikes because that's what we did all day. You know, we rode bikes.
Yeah.
Um,
Back in the good
to
old
Ohio.
days.
Yeah, yeah. So let me think if there's anything else I want to say about Reading. So a lot of my dad's side lived in Reading.
Yeah.
So I had a good relationship with like my grandmother on his side, my grandfather on his side. You know, and then some of my step family, they also lived there as well. So I had good relationships with them. Um, and mixed family. So, my dad's black and my mom's Puerto Rican. So I'm half
Hmm.
and half.
Gotcha.
So we got a lot of mixed people in our family. So, but it was never any tension anywhere we went. It wasn't like, oh, if I'm with this side, there's problems. If I'm with this side, honestly, it was all good. I never experienced any type of discrimination that I was aware of, at least at that
Yeah.
age.
because you look like one
So
of everybody.
yeah,
You could go to Saudi Arabia, they'd be like, Habibi.
dude, no lie, man. When I was in Iraq, I had to do the interpreter. He's like, "Hey, Kuwaiti." I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah,
dude,
exactly.
I'm from
You look like one of
Pennsylvania.
my
He's like,
cousins.
yeah. He was like, from Kuwait, right? I'm like, nah, man, I'm from Pennsylvania, like from America. He's like, really? Yeah, he just, he didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so we moved to Ohio. We ride out so before, let me rewind a little bit. The company he was working for, dude, they sent a truck out, they packed all our stuff. It was like when you move with the military.
Yeah.
They sent a truck out, they got movers, and dude, we're living in the ghetto.
Yeah.
This semi pulls up and there's people moving our stuff, and I'm like, oh, we made it. Like my dad is rich. Like this company's moving us out, man. So they packed the
Yeah.
house up. Um,
Not putting it in the back of a
for real.
pickup stacked to the roof,
Dude, yeah,
strapping it
they
down.
parked a semi on our, and our
Yeah.
street was a parking lane. It's a one way, a parking lane, two lanes in the middle, and a parking lane. So maybe even one lane in the middle and a parking. This semi's taking up the whole street.
Yeah.
They got guys coming in our house. They're packing our dishes and stuff. I'm like, I'm thinking like, man, my dad he must have did something crazy, right? So we get to Ohio and they put us in a hotel. Embassy Suites. I don't know if you're familiar with Embassy Suites.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
they
You
put us
got
in the
one right
Embassy
here.
Suites. Dude, I remember walking to Embassy Suites and it was like the hotel from Home Alone. Like
Yeah, they're
I'm like
nice.
looking around like, oh my God, like this. I'm looking up. It might not have been in my mind. It's 50 stories, but it's probably like
Yeah.
8 stories. I'm looking up in the middle of this thing, like, man, like we made it now. Like
Yeah.
we're good. So we stayed in the embassy suites for a couple of days. We had 2 rooms. There's 8 of us. The
Yeah.
morning they had continental breakfast. I'm like, breakfast is free. Like,
Hell yeah.
Chowing down.
Yeah, man, the things the things especially as a kid, dude, like
Yeah.
where
They got those little waffle makers.
man, I was
They hook it
living
up.
it up. My parents probably were. I was probably terrorizing them. Um, so we get there, I didn't want to go. I was very against it. And so I moved to Columbus, to the capital city. I moved to the east side of
Gotcha.
Columbus. The east side of Columbus now is a special place in my heart for sure. That's basically where I went to high school.
Yeah, I got you.
But when I first got there, man, I was like, this is trash. Like everybody seemed like super country. They said y'all, and I was like, man, it's a bunch of like cowboys out here. Like that's how it felt in my mind, because I'm coming from the East Coast city life. So and then I had the demeanor about me just because of where I lived. I was not going to be a victim, so I looked like that. I wasn't a tough guy. I could fight a little bit, but I wasn't like no bully, big gang member tough guy. I just was like, hey, you're just not gonna mess with me type of thing. I'm not gonna mess with you, but you're not gonna mess with me. And so I get to the school. I don't remember if I had an afro at this time. I ended up growing an afro. I'll have to send you a picture.
No way.
Yeah, I had a big fro. But at the longest, I could pull my hair down under my chin.
Oh hell yeah. See, this episode's going to get more editing. You gotta send me that picture because now,
absolutely,
it should be popping up right now,
dude. Absolutely, and I had braids, I had an afro, and ponytail, whatever.
Real quick, were you listening to Bone Thugs and Harmony out there in?
I did actually. I actually went to school with I forget one of them's niece went to school with me.
Oh shit!
And actually, my cousins in Cleveland used to live like right around the corner from their studio.
No way.
So they've hung out. Yeah, they've kicked it with them
every time
times.
I think of Cleveland, Ohio, I always think of that Tupac.
And that's huge out there.
That song.
Because like East Coast, I'm listening to all the East Coast stuff. Like for me, I'm listening to like Lost Boys, AZ, Nas, and I get out there and they're like AZ, Lost Boys. Like
we don't listen to that.
Yeah, what is that? Like
we're listening to harmonized gangster rap.
Yeah, man. So where was I? Yeah, so we get out there, school. So I get in school, and it was just different. And Columbus to me, it's a lot more ethnicity wise. It's a lot more black and white. There's different pockets of different races around the city. Some Ethiopia Eritreans. There's like a pocket of like Mexican communities, but it was very different from when I was in Pennsylvania, where it was like a lot of Hispanic community everywhere. So that was different for me because from what I remember, there just weren't as many white people in my school in Pennsylvania. But then when I got to Columbus, it was about half and half. And then they're all looking at me like, well, what are you? Like you don't look like us, but you don't look like them. Like,
it's too funny.
I didn't have issues. There were a couple occasions where I kind of ran into some discrimination, but it wasn't like I didn't have any major issues at the school. It was just different for me. I didn't mind it. I don't have a problem with anybody, but that was just a different cultural thing for me. And so get to Ohio, get to school. I enjoyed it there. I started to enjoy it. It's funny. So like my brothers were really good at basketball. I know everybody says that, but like one of my brothers played college basketball in Pennsylvania. The other one certainly could have. And I wasn't that good at basketball. But when I got there, so when I finished 8th grade, I get to high school, everybody's like, yo, you got to play basketball. Oh, Gooch, man, your brothers, I know them. Man, you got to play ball.
It's an expectation.
Like, yeah, I'm not really that good, man, and I'm short compared to them. My brothers are tall, my mom's 5 foot. So thanks, Mom. But I'm not like super short, 5'10", but like my brother was like 6'4" in 9th grade, and could ball. Yeah. So like, bro, you got to try out. Like tryouts are coming up. And I'm like, young dude. I'm like, yeah, I'll try out. So I didn't make the basketball team. Fast forward, I wasn't that good. I think like 3 of us got cut. And I shouldn't have made the team. I wasn't good. So then I think at the time, what's during basketball season? Swimming? I don't know if swimming's during basketball season. I don't remember.
It's been a long
time, dude. No,
Yeah.
swimming's like during wrestling season, I think. I don't remember. But either way, I didn't make the team. I think it was swimming at the time. And but I always enjoyed swimming. So the one of the good things about when I was a kid, I do remember, yeah, we were broke, but like my mom put us in swim lessons at the Y, at the
Got you.
YMCA. So like some of my earliest memories in life, no lie, are like swimming at the Y.
Hell
So
yeah.
like I've never had a like I'm super comfortable in the water. Like that is the least of my concerns. Uh, and I know some adults that can't swim, and I don't fault them. It's just one of
Yeah.
those that hey, my folks just
Big
it was
shot.
a free swim lesson, and my mom probably want to get rid of us for a couple hours. So she's like, yeah, go swim. Um, and also I did judo when I was a little kid too, like three,
Oh
four
shit.
years old. Yeah. But anyway, so fast forward, Ohio, one of my friends was like, yo, you should try like, have you ever swam? And I'm like, yeah, I'm a great swimmer, but I never swam competitively. I can just like not die in the water, you know, I can and so he's like, yeah, you should come out and swim. So I ended up joining the swim team. I had never been
Hell
on a
yeah.
swim team ever. Um, and I thought that was cool, man, just because it's, you know, it's something different. Um, so
It's so
I joined
hard,
the swim
man.
team. I wasn't very good at competitive swimming. I'll say that
It
initially.
gets
I ended up,
you working so hard. Yeah,
yeah,
it's not like you can just put your feet on the ground.
no,
You know,
nope.
you can't just take a knee. You got to get to the edge of
Mm-hmm.
the pool.
Yeah.
It's different.
So that was a good experience, man. And so I ended up on the swim team. A similar story. So I ended up playing golf. I had never played golf before in my life. So I did
Yeah.
swimming, golf, and tennis, which are very non-standard sports from where I'm from. You either play football or basketball.
Yeah.
Uh, maybe, well, no, football and basketball, and then wrestling, because Pennsylvania is a big wrestling state. I did wrestle in middle school. I wasn't very good at it because I hadn't grown yet. So I was like short and fat. So I wasn't great at wrestling, but I was like, ah, you got to do it. It's like a thing. Like you're
Yeah.
going to wrestle.
It's a must do.
Yeah. So I played a little bit of football. I'm kind of going flip-flopping, but in Pennsylvania, a little bit of football. I was in martial arts for quite some time. My dad did a lot of martial arts.
Yeah.
So I was in martial arts for quite a bit. So anyway, high school, oddly enough, so when I was like a freshman, there was a couple like cool seniors, of course, you know,
Oh yeah.
and the popular seniors that played basketball also played tennis,
Oh wow.
which you know, whatever, it is what it is. It sounds odd, but so tennis season came up, and you know, one of the seniors like, yo, Gooch, I know your brothers. Uh, you should try tennis, man. You ever play tennis? I'm like, no, I never even held a tennis racket. So he's like, yeah, come out. And I'm like, you know, ninth grader, I can be cool and play tennis, and these guys, you know, these guys will like me,
Yeah.
and I'll be popular. So I ended up playing tennis, man, and I liked it. I liked it a
Yeah.
lot. Um, and again, I had never played golf. I had never swam competitively. I had never played tennis. Um, but it was nice to have that experience because I think if I would have stayed in Pennsylvania, I probably wouldn't have had that experience because there was one high school where I lived and about 5,000 students, and I probably wasn't good enough in any sport to be on any team. So I don't
Yeah.
think I would have had that experience. Um, so that was cool. I mean, I think my initial intention, and I don't want to drag my initial story out, but
No,
I
you're
think
good.
my initial intention was um, maybe not the right one, but it worked out because I got to try different things and it kind of opened my perspective. I was like, man, you can do other stuff.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, yeah, golf is corny. Okay. But I had a great time playing golf.
Yeah.
And now I'm a little bit older. I'm like, man, I can go play. Now am I good? No, but like I can at least not hold someone back. And a lot of folks don't understand, man. There's a lot of business that happens on golf courses.
Yeah. That's where I'm trying to get.
So, you know, it's one of those things.
Yeah, real big
Uh,
business.
yeah, honestly. And
Right.
so I'll say that. So Ohio, um, decent time there. Like I said, special place in my heart for Columbus.
Yeah.
Um, you know, if people ask me where I'm from, I'll tell them I'm from Pennsylvania. I am. Then I went to high school in Ohio, and then I joined the service from Ohio.
So
So
you graduated in Columbus,
correct.
and that was your last stop before you stepped out on your own.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I graduated, you know, that summer, and that fall I was at basic training in San Antonio.
Damn. Right out the gate.
Yeah, I took the
Dang.
summer off because you know I talked to
Yeah.
my dad. He's like, "Hey man, you can you can stay if you want. If you stay and work, you're gonna pay some bills. If you stay and go to college, you can stay for free. But you ain't just gonna sit around, you know." So I'm like, "Yeah." at that point he was doing pretty well in his career. I'd say we were probably, probably like middle class family at that time. But it's still, I didn't ask, but I don't know if it was a pride thing, but
Yeah.
I didn't ask for money for college, and because I didn't believe he had it. So Dad, if you're watching and you had college money, there's your answer. Uh, I didn't ask because I don't know. I was just like one of those things like I didn't want to add burden, bro. There's like 6 kids.
Yeah, and college is so expensive. It's like a
Yeah.
risky business to get into. Interesting enough, Sean and I went to the same college right out of high school.
Nice.
Jeez.
It doesn't exist anymore. For example, why there's a risk, right? And then it
Man.
was picked up by another school that no longer exists, who picked up by another school that also no longer exists.
That's
So
crazy.
when you try to get your money back because you got fraudulent whatever, and you still
No, bro. Every time they do a background check on the, I'm getting a new contract or whatever, they're like, oh yeah, we did a little check. Your degree's false or whatever. I'm like, nah, dude. Once upon a time, this was the real
Yeah.
it's messed up. And
That's
then
crazy.
like,
Like,
well,
you're
we can't
lying.
find-
You put a fake school down.
we can't find it. I'm like, yo,
yeah,
you want me to show you my student loan receipts? Like,
that's
Yeah.
the parallels of life of it too. Is like, okay, well, you can't afford college, so what do? They tempt you with FAFSA. They tempt you with
Sure.
student loans and things like that. Did you ever dance around with that idea?
So
taking a loan or anything like that?
I applied to schools, some in-state schools, because I knew they were cheaper. But I'll be honest, I wasn't as educated because
Yeah.
my folks didn't go to college. So I wasn't as educated of like, hey, this is how it works. So I did apply, but I applied late.
Yeah.
So, once that money starts drying up.
Yeah, it goes quick.
Yeah. So I got some money, but even as a, 17, 18-year-old, I'm like, no, that's not
Yeah.
enough, man. Like that ain't gonna cut it. And one of the things that stands out to me is, I have an aunt. I won't name her name, but
Yeah.
she knows who she is. I remember when I was younger, and she came in. We were very close knit family, and so we spent a lot of time together. We tried to, and I remember her coming in and saying she was so happy about something, and I'm like, "What's up? What's going on?" She's like, "Man, I finally paid off my student loans." And
Yep.
as a kid, the first thing that popped in my head was, "You're old."
Yeah, as a kid,
Like,
you're like, what?
bro,
yeah, you're old.
And
What do
this-
you mean you just paid off your student loans?
dude,
No, she
this
probably wasn't old. Go ahead.
my bad, BG.
Yeah, you're good.
Bro,
You're good.
this just reminded me, Josh, remember when we went to school? Our teachers were still paying for a student loan.
Yeah, man.
That's crazy.
I still got some debt.
There was a couple, a husband and wife teacher, both of them were still paying student loan, and they
Yep.
were teaching us. I'm like, shit, it's not adding up.
It's
Yeah, like wait a minute.
Well, I think that's interesting. I think a lot of people go through that transitionary period when they complete high school. What are they going to do next?
Mhm.
Community college has grown a lot. Trade schools have grown a lot. And just going out and getting a job, it looks different in 2024 than it did way back in the early 2000s, late 90s. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Career paths are different. Even including joining the military is different now than it was then.
Sure.
Bro,
Yeah.
we had to hand fill out apps.
That's true.
Yeah.
You had to bring and print out resume.
Oh
with
yeah.
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 Cover letter.
Yep.
Yeah.
And those skills, a lot of people don't have them now, man. And that's why that's a skill. If I could try not to toot my horn too much, but
No, you're good.
that's a skill that I think I'm good at, the writing and editing piece. And I know a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And so, I send a resume and that's bam, bam, bam. People are like, oh man, this is, am I the most qualified? Maybe, maybe not, but that says something right there of like, oh, this, you still have those skills that people that are hiring can appreciate. Not that they don't appreciate the technology and stuff like that. But a lot of folks in these positions to hire may be a little bit older and they're like, oh, okay, I like this. This brings me back to the time when I was doing X. So back to your question, Josh, like I did dance around with it. I applied to school. I didn't get that much money. So, and I knew because of the scenario with my aunt that I didn't want student loan debt. So I knew that at that time, like, nope. So I was like, man, let me look. My brother was in the Coast Guard. My oldest brother, he was in the Coast Guard for 4 years out in Jersey. And
did that play a pretty any kind of role on influencing your thoughts towards the military?
Probably.
Yeah.
probably subconsciously. It could, I don't know that we've ever sat down and he's like, hey, look, Brian, here's what this and this. But it had to have,
Right.
got an older brother, joined the service, he comes back. He bought a 3 Series BMW.
Oh yeah.
Dude, we used to ride in that
22%
thing,
interest rate.
wheels fall off, dude. Yeah, nah, yeah. And I was like, man, my brother got a black BMW 3 Series. I think it was the
Yeah.
325 IS, clean.
Oh yeah. Clean.
And I'm like, man, this dude got this from the military. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and again, I don't think it was a conscious thing. It was just like, hey, because we grew up the way we grew up, and
Yeah.
now seeing that, because my dad had like a old school, like a 5-speed Audi, man, like a Audi 5000 or something.
Yeah.
But we had one car for 8 people, and he took that car to work.
Yeah.
So we're walking or biking everywhere.
Yeah.
And even if we got to go somewhere as a family, we can't fit in one car.
Got to take those feet Raris for a ride.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think that probably weighed in on me joining the service. But I knew
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't want student loan debt, and I was like, well, I
Gotcha.
know the service can give me some college money.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I was like, hey, I'm either going to go Coast Guard or Air Force. And I had the Army recruiters hounding me, shout out to the Army, right?
Yeah, they are on it. They're always trying
Dude,
to
this
get you.
Army recruiter was hounding. He's like, man, come down, take your test. He's
Yeah.
like, man, I'll, you don't even have to join. Just come take the test, Cool. So I'm like, all right, I'll take the test. I told him, I remember that I had a little attitude problem at 18. I was like, yeah, I'll come down and take the test, but I'm not joining the Army. He's like, yeah, no problem, no problem. So I come take the test. I did pretty well on the test. And he's like, man, you could have any job in the Army. He's like, man, look, Army has all these jobs. Look at these other branches, man. They have way less jobs.
Yeah.
You need to join the Army. I'm like, dude, I told you I'm not joining the Army. So
This is not
fast
the
forward a little bit.
ASVAB test, right? This is like you're talking about the each branch has like a test that they do to see which type of jobs you would fit into. Is that the one you're referring to?
I think it was ASVAB.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was ASVAB.
They used to have like a pre-ASVAB. You take a pre-ASVAB, like
Oh,
a mock one, but the Armed Service,
nah,
what is it called? Vocational Aptitude Battery. That's what the ASVAB
yeah,
stands for.
yeah,
And a lot of kids don't take it. They don't take it at all.
yeah.
And but that's what you need to take to come in an enlistment to see if you meet the thresholds for certain jobs and things like that.
Yeah, and again, like I said, I didn't blow it out the water, but I did pretty well. And he's like, man, you can have any job you want. So I was like, nah. So I ended up, ghosting him, and then I called the Air Force guy, and shout outs to Sergeant Ross, Jerome Ross. He's from Columbus, actually. He's actually
Oh,
doing really well.
oh, good.
Bunch of businesses, bunch of rental properties. He's killing it.
Hell yeah.
I have to send this to him, but yeah, I go chat with him. He was prior security forces as well, turned recruiter.
Cool. Let's go.
Yeah,
The best
and
of the best.
I said, I remembered. I don't remember why. At 18, I'm like, hey, I remember talking to people. My dad's like, hey, get a guaranteed job. They're
Yeah,
gonna tell you they can't do that. They can do that. And I said,
for
all right.
sure.
So I go in the recruiter. I'm like, hey, I want to be security forces. And he's like, what? You sure, man? And I'm like, yep. And he's like, hey, I think he was security force for like 11 years.
Damn.
He's like, are you sure, man? He's like, I was security forces. Like, I was like, yeah. I said, I'm not joining unless I got a guaranteed job with security forces. Like, all right, let me see. Cause I got my test scores. All right, yeah, you can definitely join, do that. So, did the MEPS thing, whatever. Funny story about that whole scenario. They called me one day, to come in to sign some paperwork. And it was another, he was a mass sergeant at the time. It was another mass sergeant. And, call in, the guy's like, he's all giving me the, I didn't think about it till now. He's giving me the, I have a lot of recruiters that are friends, so I'm not going to give them a bad rap.
Yeah.
But he was kind of giving me the salesman pitch of, hey,
Gotcha.
man, you're going to be out the door next week. We got you a great job. You're going to be a helicopter crew chief. And I said, no, I'm not. And he kind of looked puzzled, like, you can't talk to me like that. I'm a master, but I didn't care. I was a civilian kid. I'm an 18-year-old, And I said, no, I'm not. Like, I'm telling you, and I told my recruiter, I'm not joining unless I'm going to security forces.
Yep.
And he's like, what? What do you mean? So he calls he's like, can you step out for a second? Sure. I step outside. He's going at it with my recruiter. I don't know what the miscommunication was. I never asked my recruiter. I probably hit him up and ask him.
Yeah.
They were
That's the
going at
questions
it,
we
man.
need to know.
Yeah, like, ooh, what happened? And so he can come back in. He's like, all right, well, you're not leaving. You
Damn.
know, we're working on a date for you. We'll you know,
So this was
we'll
your
get you
MEP at
back.
MEP shipping?
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
they called me in to sign paperwork to take a crew chief job,
Damn.
which, you know, hindsight, that would have been awesome. I got
Yeah, of
some buddies that
course.
are crew chiefs on a helicopter. Psh,
Yep.
I'd probably been loving it. I'd have been in the Middle East a lot, which I was anyway. So, you know, it was what it
Anything,
was.
that's one thing I think about. Sean, is like, when you think of the Air Force as a civilian, what do you think of?
Hmm. Planes.
Exactly. So like I think, and I listen to a lot of the people that are like air crew, they love their job, man.
Hmm.
Anybody
Yeah.
that's, except for maintainers or hit and miss, a lot of them love being a
Yeah.
maintainer, but they equally love to complain about it. Mostly
Yeah.
probably because it's just hard work and long hours and
Yeah.
hard on your
Yeah, it is,
body.
man. That shift work. Yeah.
But I think about like, man, the people that are close to the planes, on the planes, doing the mission, they're getting a different experience. Um,
Sure.
as a security guard and a police officer, you are oftentimes very far away from the planes because you're at the perimeter, you're at the gate, you're vetting people, you're doing all that
Yeah.
patrolling. I mean, occasionally you're out there checking the hangars and you're doing the mission, right?
Sure.
But it's not the same as being in the plane flying.
Yeah.
We do got the Ravens and some other guys that did fast missions and things that where they're
Hmm.
on there. But usually, unless we're catching a ride somewhere, we ain't near those planes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
kind
That's
of
fair. And
I kind of envy those people. Like you said, like in hindsight, if you had been on the helicopter crew, you'd have been all over the world.
Wait, real
yeah.
quick. Can both of you guys fly the plane? A little
I
bit?
can,
Helicopter, anything?
nope.
No.
UFO?
I can
I
fly a
could.
patrol car.
Yeah. So the only reason I could probably not die if I was in an airplane and the pilot was dead because just because I took some flying lessons.
Nice.
I was actually working. I was debate. I was kind of on the fence about going the pilot route.
Yeah.
So I started taking flying lessons. But that's the only reason. That was 100% on me on my own time.
Yeah.
So there's no type of pilot training that we get.
I
You
love
know, we
that.
just have to.
Hey, so
What's that?
after you like first started the Air Force, I don't know if you still get it, especially now as an officer and stuff. Do people still ask you if you fly planes? If they see you out
Oh
and
yeah,
about?
when I was well, a lot of kids will
Yeah, yeah.
now our uniform's a little different. They'll be like, oh, this guy's in the army, but you tell
He's
them
a
Air Force, and
pilot.
they're like, yeah, can you fly? I did have a lady ask me at the check-in counter. I gave her my military ID. She's like, oh, you're a pilot? I'm like, no,
Yeah.
no. I told her, I said
With
I
the
fly a desk.
officers, the officer
Yeah,
uniform looks like a pilot's uniform
yeah, that's true.
because that
If
ranks of
you're
the
if you,
epaulets. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It
yeah,
has
for sure.
that more. The enlisted version still does, but with the stripes on the sleeve, in
Yeah,
service
that's
dress,
true. I didn't even
it
think
kind
about
of
that. Yeah,
it doesn't have the same pilot look to it. But if you
yeah, yeah,
put the
yeah.
epaulets in there and you add the rank to the epaulets, now it really starts to look like a pilot's uniform. But
Yeah, I agree,
yeah,
man.
man. So
Um,
so you got through the recruiting, you had to go back to MEPS twice, and
yep.
that's that.
Uh,
You told them, hell no. You controlled your own destiny, which I respect that because I think one of my jobs as an MTI, we'd get a lot of recruits that weren't happy with their job. And
yeah,
same thing in career field as a supervisor. A lot of people, oh, I don't even like this security forces thing. Well, you didn't control your destiny, man. You had choices.
yeah,
Nobody came to your house. It wasn't a recruiter from the draft coming to your house telling you,
yeah,
hey, you're up, tag, you're it. This is your thing. So you had choices, and I like the fact that you stood your ground and you controlled your destiny. Yeah,
yeah. You
and,
know,
and your
I
dad, he
tried.
guided you
Go
well
ahead.
too. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because he
Yeah,
kind of he let you know like, hey, if you're gonna go and they make sure you have something promising.
yeah, that's dope.
yeah. Which again, it was just one of we're not like a super heavy military family. Well, I say that some of my grandfather was in the Korean War. Uncle was in Vietnam. In the army, both of them in the army, and then my dad served in the Air Force during Vietnam up in New York at Plattsburgh, but he didn't go to Vietnam.
Gotcha.
But that I didn't really know much about that honestly until like
Yeah,
I joined, if that makes sense. Like I knew my dad was in and he liked airplanes and he had been in back in the day, but it wasn't like a super military family where like, hey, every day I'm telling you war stories about when I was in. It's like
yeah,
I know some of the history, but it wasn't like pushed on me. If I had an influence, probably my brother, my oldest brother, joining was probably the biggest influence.
Mm,
And then also my aunt, because I knew, like I said, I knew I didn't want student loan debt.
yeah,
Right, wrong, or indifferent. Would I have done well in college? Probably.
yeah.
Um, I got some of my friends that went to college who are doing well for themselves, but just for me at the time, where my head was, I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. So, yeah, jumped into security forces. Can I talk through that? Getting shipped out
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff. All right,
Let's do that. You guys are good. We don't need a break or anything. We good?
No,
we're
we
good.
good. We good.
Yeah,
Okay.
good to go.
All right.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Share your
ship out.
journey after you get in there.
All right. Uh, so the first time I was on a plane that I can remember was going to Lackland.
Oh wow.
I believe I was on a plane as a little kid, but I don't remember that.
Yeah.
So, fly down, usual story. It's freezing cold in the airport. I do remember that. Like, and it's freezing in here.
What time of year
And
did you ship out? What was your month? Do you remember?
September.
September? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was an October guy, so I got you.
it was freezing in the airport. But it was just the AC,
Yeah.
But then we get on the bus and do that thing. So, go through basic. I won't. I spare you some of the details. I have a really good poker face. I always have. So
Yeah.
I'm very good at not laughing. So I have three older brothers. I'm the youngest on the brothers. So
Yeah.
you got to imagine probably a lot of jokes at my expense. So I got really good at not laughing.
Yeah.
Like that's
They
just not
trained you
funny.
before the training.
Yeah, that's not funny. Even if it's hilarious, I'm
Yeah.
like, I
Ha
still want
ha.
to make them feel stupid. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
sure, that's
Yeah.
funny, right?
Can't get me.
Uh, so I would like sometimes, and people at OTS can attest to this as well. I would sometimes like do stuff in formation or like make people laugh, but then I wouldn't laugh, and then they would get in trouble. And
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to get them in trouble. It was just like, whatever. It was basic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
You
you
one of
had
my
that
start,
thing
TIs,
mastered.
and I think for context for listeners maybe trying to learn about the Air Force, you started as an enlisted, and
correct,
the
correct,
basic training for enlisted folks is at San Antonio, and yeah.
correct.
So okay, okay. Just want
Yeah,
to throw
my
that
bad. Yeah,
context in
so
there for the guys.
yeah, no, you're right. So to join enlisted, you need basically a GED or a high school diploma, I believe is the current requirement. To be an officer, you need at least a 4-year degree. The disparity is a lot smaller now. Most of our enlisted corps has degrees.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it wasn't as prevalent, so it was like, oh, you got a degree, big time, you can be an officer. Where now it's like most people have degrees anyway. And that's not me crapping on the officer corps. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
But those are the requirements. So yeah, so join basic training, boot camp is what other branches call it maybe. Um, yeah, decent time, and you get yelled at. You get we're folding shirts and making sure our lockers are look up uniform, and everybody needs to look the same. And it sounds like, and Jay Wells, you can probably talk a little bit more about this. It sounds ridiculous to a normal person of like, why are we doing this? Why do I need to fold a t-shirt into a square that's perfect? Yeah, there you go. Uh, why do I have to do
Carry
these?
this Lackland laser flashlight
Yeah,
around.
there's flashlight
Flashlights on.
everywhere. So it teaches, and I don't want to steal your thunder, Jay Wells, but it teaches. We're on the same team. We have to learn things the same way at the baseline. Obviously, everybody's mission is different, but we all need to be kind of on a unified front. I think some kids at 18, 17 to 35, I believe now is the cutoff. I
Yeah.
think some of these people
Even
need
older.
need some of that discipline. Some people need some of that standards, some of those skills where, I think I was professionally mature at 18.
Yeah.
I think personally immature. I think most 18-year-old guys are not mature. But I didn't really need that. So like the yelling and stuff, it's like, all right, cool, you can just tell me. But there's some kids that needed
Yeah.
that, who just never have done anything on their own, never had any type of structure. Needed that, and they tear you down and build you up. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things. Did anybody slap me or nothing? No, it wasn't
No.
the case. So one of my TIs, great dude, I can't find him. He's disappeared. I don't know what happened to him, but he was awesome. He definitely was a instiller of discipline, but also he was a human. So yeah, they weren't supposed to cuss at us at the time. So of course they didn't.
Yeah, never. Of course not.
But it was what it was. And
Yeah.
but after I graduated, well, I'll go through that process. So I think I would not go through basic training again. Some people say they loved it. It was a great time. Uh, I disagree. I don't think it was a terrible time, but also it was just like, I understand the need behind it.
Yeah.
Would I go back? Probably not. So graduated. I would say though, for people in basic training, I did not buy my basic training like yearbook, quote
Yeah.
unquote. So you can buy like a yearbook of like photos from your flights. I didn't do that. I think
You
I was
regret
still
it?
had like my 1,000% regret it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Me too.
if you're in any type of initial training in the military, buy the stupid book
Yeah.
that you might think is stupid because when you get older like me, you're gonna be like, man, I wish I had those pictures.
Well, I don't know if they do it now, but 10 years ago when I was pushing, they even did videos.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a short video and it was part of the package. But yeah, get that
Yeah.
stuff, man. Get those
I
memories.
think just being I don't want to say cheap, but I think having a mindset of like, man, I don't have no money. Like, dude, that's a lot. It might have been $50. I don't even remember how much it cost, but
Yeah.
just having no money, you're like, I don't think
Yeah.
that's dumb. Like, I'm getting out in 4 years anyway. It's just stupid. I've been in, what's today? Next week will be 21 years
Yeah.
that I've been in. So you
Cheers
know
to
what I mean?
that.
Like, yeah, appreciate it.
I only got water, but cheers to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same. It's cranberry juice, I promise.
I'm done with my coffee, but
Yeah, appreciate it. So, finished that up. I went to my tech school, AIT for for Army, but it's
Yep.
basically the specialized training for your job. So I went to Security Forces Tech School, which so happened to be at the same base as basic training. So I had the luxury of seeing my TI while I was in tech school. He would pop up at the little shopette over on Security Forces
Yeah.
training grounds.
Little gas station.
And I liked that little airplane game that the arcade game they had in there. It was like the plane moves back and forth on the screen and the other planes come down and you shoot at them.
1942.
Yep, 1942. So they had that
love
at
that game.
the shop at.
what?
I'd play it, man. Dude, I loved it. And
That was
I
a
remember a
dope
couple
ass
times.
That's
Yeah,
a
he'd
2D
come
game,
up.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
Oh, it's
looking
an
at the
arcade
top.
game.
You're like this, shooting
Man.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like my sound effects.
And I remember him coming up and being like, Gooch. I'm like, oh shit. Oh, what's up, sir? Super cool though. He's a human.
It is exciting
and the training
to see.
portion was
It's
over.
exciting
Yeah.
to see your recruits graduate and go to the next stage.
Yep.
It is.
Yeah. Tech school for security forces at the time, I said was like basic training round 2.
Yeah.
They load us on the buses. We get there. They're screaming on the bus, get off the bus. And I'm like, man, I just left basic training. This is trash. Like, I just graduated. Same thing, fallout, getting formation, calling out names. I'm like, God, man, this sucks.
First
What I
thing.
get myself into, And there was a couple guys who had bought the block hats, the starched block hats.
No.
And they showed up to tech school and they're like, what is that? Are you a chef? This is security forces. Yeah, man, hot mess, man. But I had some great friends actually from basic and tech school. One of my guys I still keep up with.
Nice.
Ramos, one of the dudes, man. He was in my flight in basic and tech school. He was my roommate in tech school. And then we ended up being stationed at Wright Pat together. There's a couple dudes that I still keep in contact with, man, from way back.
Anybody from the OGs that still serve?
Nah, Ramos just retired. Yeah, a couple guys from basic.
Nice.
A couple dudes from tech school that I was like really good friends with. A couple guys from like down south, like Carolinas, Georgia, Louisiana. I lost touch with a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
Just because at that time, social media wasn't really a thing.
No, we just had the cell phones, the little bricks.
Yeah, the little flip phone.
When were both of you guys together?
Oh yeah, that's coming.
Tell them about something that you
there.
experienced. Yeah.
There's a couple times, it'll come up. It'll come up.
Yeah.
Was it San Antonio?
Nope. No, it was Korea. So
yeah.
I don't want to drag it, but finished tech school. Learned a lot there. I'm not trying to make this a recruiting video, but you learn a lot of stuff about a lot there. It's like, tactics, weapons. A lot of people enjoy the weapons, but that's difficult because it's very technical. We're talking about
True.
ranges, for all these different guns. We're talking about firing. We're talking about clearing stoppages. Crew serve weapons. Like it's all this stuff. So I got to shoot all sorts of machine guns and grenade launchers and throw grenades and so that stuff's cool. It's also like super dangerous.
It was fun.
Yeah. It was. Yeah, it was. I would say that the tests for those are very difficult though, because if you imagine it's a bunch of numbers for a bunch of different guns.
Yeah.
So got through that unscathed. I didn't fail. I didn't get washed back. Come out of there. First base was Albuquerque, New Mexico, Kirtland Air Force Base.
Oh yeah, so, paradise.
And tech school, there was a girl who had orders to Lakenheath. If she ever sees it, she's gonna be like, "He's talking about me." And she was from Albuquerque, so she's like, "Man, I don't want to go overseas." Like, and you could trade back then.
Oh yeah,
if you were in tech school, you could trade. So I was like, "Hey, I'll trade you." Like, I got Albuquerque. She's like, "All right, cool." So when it gets time to trade, she's like, "No, never mind. Like, I don't want to go there." So I because everybody's telling me like, "Bro, overseas, go overseas."
Yeah.
So I get to Albuquerque, and they have high security weapons there, PO1 weapons, and I had the luxury of guarding those PO1 weapons underground.
Nice.
So it was crazy to get to work. I won't spill the beans, but it was just very secure.
Yeah.
Because you have to for the type of weapons they have there, and
did it feel like
unreal
to be in that level of environment?
Yeah, like a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt very much like a James Bond movie.
I was about to say that 007.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it was very even the technology back then, it was like super high tech stuff.
Yeah.
It was very high tech stuff. It would be difficult for you to get some stuff out of there and make it.
Rightfully so. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. You ain't getting in there.
Oh yeah.
So did that, and then I came in as an E1. So Airman Basic, bottom level, first rank.
Slick sleeve, they call them.
Yeah. I actually had a E4 salute me one time in the parking lot because he thought I was an officer.
No, he just saw into the future.
Yeah, all right, I'll take it. So
how many ranks?
There,
oh yeah,
on the enlisted side, no, you're good. E1 through E9.
Mm-hmm.
So E1 is the bottom rung. A lot of times when you finish basic or tech school, if you sign up for like 6 years or if you have some college credit, you can get bumped up to the E2 or E3.
Yep.
I didn't have any of those things, and I only signed up for the minimum. So I was E1. So what we do? Did the Kirtland thing. That was a rough introduction, I think, into the career field, because the expectations were very high there because of the type of work that we did. So there was a lot of the standards were just higher. I'll say that. So
I think that makes sense too, especially now.
Yeah.
With all of our experience and looking back, it makes a lot of sense why the standards are so high in those places.
Yeah. And I think, but I do believe that set me up for success. Okay. Because I think if I would have came out the gate and went somewhere that was like super chill, that would have set the wrong tone, I think, for my career.
It's tough.
I think it would. I think I would have done well, but I think it would have set the wrong tone. And so I did the thing there, spent some time there, got some certifications, got all the new guy posts, if you will, all the crappy posts. Hey, sit in this Humvee for 12 hours. And we were working 12s.
Yep.
Sit in this Humvee for 12 hours and watch the grass grow. All right. It's hot.
That's what made you good. That's what made you good at these podcasts, because what else can you do while you're out there?
Dude, yeah. If I tell you how many lottery talks
teaches you patience, huh?
How many times I
test your patience.
Yeah, for sure. And they did. They're like, "Hey, here's your bags, here's your gear, there's your truck out there. Go.
Yeah,
we'll see you in 12 hours, man. If you got to go to the bathroom, don't call us too much, but give us a call. We'll come relieve you." So, so from there, that's where I went on my first deployment from there. So, this is when we were taking over. The Air Force was taking over the prison mission in Iraq.
Got you.
So they did a big push. A few hundred of us, not from there, but from across the force, got tagged to go when we took over Camp Bucca.
Yeah.
and that was
in southern Iraq, right?
yeah, that was
Now it's a
pretty close to the
hotel,
border.
they say.
Yeah, man,
So
don't get
weird.
me started. Yeah, it was nuts, man, because we all deployed, and it was very you know, it was very other branch style where they brought a bunch of us together. We all trained together, but when it was Fort Lewis,
Yeah.
that's a joint base now. But we went to Fort Lewis and did like a month and some change of training. We had no days off. It was Monday through Sunday. I think we
Yeah.
had 2 days off for Thanksgiving.
Was it 90 days or like 45?
Dude, I don't remember, man.
Yeah.
I'll
Is
be
this
honest,
it?
I don't remember.
Up in Washington, Fort Lewis, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Gotcha.
we stayed in those like condemned barracks that we weren't supposed to stay in. Yeah.
Typical.
Yeah. So we get up there, we do our training. It was all Army training, like I said, Monday through Sunday, and it rains all the time. If you're from that area, you're familiar. And this was November, so it was cold, and we're out there doing flutter kicks in the rain and snow.
Yeah.
And Army training, it was some detainee prison operations training, a lot of firing, moving and shooting, vehicle tactics, village, like all that stuff.
Yeah.
And we all went up there together. We all flew out, I think, on the big birds, maybe C5s. Yeah, we rolled out together. I do remember, like I said, we had like 2 days off. A bunch of guys went into Seattle. But my boy's uncle lived out there, Dominguez. I think he's still in Dale Dominguez. Sorry, Dale, I have to call you out if you're on. His uncles lived out there. And I believe, yeah, Filipino. I think his uncle's Filipino. And they just cooked a bunch of food. And we just went to his uncle's house, little suburb. I think it's, I won't say the suburb. But yeah, we went up there, a bunch of food. We certainly didn't have alcohol because we weren't of age. So you know, had a bunch of good food and drink, and just kicked it for like 2 days, and then back to training. And then you know, we loaded up and rolled out. So I had my experience there. When we got to Iraq, it was about 35 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
It was freezing, and I was not prepared for that because everything you see on TV, it's like hot and sucks. And I remember sitting in the tower and it's like 35 degrees and I'm freezing. So most of the people that went with us, and I'll keep that story short, most of the people that went with us worked in the prison.
Yeah.
I just realized I'm telling like the longest story of my career. So
no, you're good.
Sorry for that.
That's why we brought you on, brother.
Yeah.
Hey, this is episode 1, so it's a series.
All right. Hey. So you can chop it up. So long or the short, we a lot of people worked in the prisons, but they came. I remember them asking for 2 squads to do the off base and perimeter security mission, and my LT, I won't name his name, but he's like, "Yeah, we'll do it." So I didn't work in the prison. For the most part, I ended up working perimeter security, which was towers, entry control, and then off base security, like off base patrols.
Yeah. At that
which
time,
was crazy though.
At that time, did they call that mission set outside the wire OTW?
I don't think so.
It probably took shape in the years afterwards.
Yeah, maybe it was.
Like that. Did you guys go out like 10K or how far out did you go?
Basically. Yeah, I think there, because we had some local villages, I think it was out maybe like 5 and some change, but we really had free reign.
Gotcha.
Which is crazy to think about now.
Yeah.
They were just like, hey, this is your sector, like secure it. If there's villages there, secure it. So that was a crazy experience because like we were working with the Army as well. And our commander was Army.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was very much a joint mission. And then halfway through, the Marines showed up. So we would ride patrols, let's say 2 Humvees, and then each Humvee had 2 Army, 2 Air Force, 1 Marine.
Yeah. Full joint op.
Crazy to see that, you know, and just crazy to see the differences in how we operate, but also the similarities, because like stuff goes down, we're all kind of on the same front.
Yeah.
So that was cool. I would say that I had a really good time there. As crappy as it was, I had a really good time there. And that was I wouldn't call it a bear base, but like when we got there, we lived in a big circus tent, for about a month, and it's just bunk beds everywhere and a bunch of dudes and rifles hanging off your rack and pistol under your pillow. And, you know, it wasn't like go to the armory and
Yeah, you get
no,
that
man, we're
relocatable
ready to,
building that came
yeah,
on
we're
a
ready to get
pallet
it on immediately.
down and
And
dirty.
yeah, and there was no perimeter fence when we showed up. Like we showed up to Bucca, CE had pushed some dirt hills up, some
Yeah,
sand hills. It was probably an 8-foot berm around it. That's it.
yeah,
After that, it was Iraq, which I
yeah.
thought was like crazy. Like,
This
are
is
you
real
kidding me?
desert out there, right?
Yeah. So while I was there, we actually we went out to a certain distance, laid stakes and laid sea wire. I got
Yeah.
some pretty cool scars from laying sea wire out there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, the guy next to me dropped one and it stuck in my leg.
Oh
And I'm
shit.
like, you gonna grab this?
That stuff is
Oh, my
sharp.
bad.
Sea wire is
Yeah.
like a circular barbed wire, Sean.
Mm.
You know, kind of lay on the ground, or you could put it up
Yeah,
on
I've seen
top of a
those.
thing. It's crazy. It comes
Man.
in these
Yeah.
like
So,
big ass, like
Yeah, that's designed to
raptor's
do
paws.
damage.
Oh, it's sharp,
oh
man.
yeah, yeah. And the dude next to me drops his side. It was stuck right in my leg.
Oh
And
hell
I'm looking
no.
at my uniform, and then I see the blood coming through. Like, I'm like, hey, you gonna grab this? Oh,
You're
my
like, yeah,
bad.
you're lucky you're on the same team.
Yeah, dude. Like, so anyway, so I had a good time there for
Yeah.
the most part. I met some
Well,
really great people,
since
man.
that was your
Uh,
first deployment, and you know you did a unique mission, I'd say 90% or more Air Force or security forces never do anything close to what you did there. How did that impact you, and like what did you take away from that first experience?
uh, I man, so it's certainly impacted me just in life because there were certain experiences, some of them not so great, some of them were great, but that stay with you. There's things that we've seen and that we did um, that stay with you. Some of it you get therapy for, some of it was positive.
Yeah.
So I think it helped. I think it did help shape the kind of person I was. I've been this way, I think, with a little less maturity probably since I was younger. So I don't think it was a drastic change. I will say, I talked to some of my cousins as I got older, and they were like, "Yeah, like we noticed a change after from before you left, from like after you returned home, after you started deploying a bunch and you got home."
Yeah.
And they were like, "It's not bad. It was just a little more like serious, I guess."
Yeah.
And I
Seen a
felt
different
bad because
side of
like,
the world.
yeah, and I kind of felt bad, like, damn, man, am I really like, and they weren't being malicious. It was just like, man, I don't, because I like to have a good time, but one of them specifically, and I'll get to that, but like after one of my Bagram deployments, I got home and I had wanted to go see my family like right away, and I think that's what
Yeah.
one of my cousins was talking about, like, man, you're like fresh home, and it's like, oh, you're a little bit different, but yeah, I think right when you get home, yeah, you're like, it's different. Like I don't. I don't have to worry about the same things
Yeah.
over that I did over there. So I think with the first deployment, man, just doing something different, it definitely helped shape my experience. I think it gave me some credibility in my mind and in reality. I
Yeah.
because we earn Army combat patches out there.
Hmm.
So like when the Army deploys, they get to wear a patch.
Yeah.
You don't wear a patch on that shoulder if you haven't deployed. So it's really easy to see who's been and who hasn't.
Yeah.
Uh, I, and I think so for me, I got home from there. I was 19. I think we did like, I don't remember what it was. I think total time gone was probably like 9 months, 10 months. I think we spent 7 months in country.
Yeah.
And, so for the Army guys, don't laugh. I'm in the Air Force.
Yeah. Yeah. We're Air Force, man. We're
So
supposed to be sitting behind a
yeah,
computer and shit.
yeah, so it should be gone for 3 months. No, so,
We're supposed to be in chow halls
so
and getting tans by the pool, getting ice cream
yeah,
at the defect. Come on.
yeah, dude. So I'll tell you that when we were on our way back, we stopped in Kuwait.
Yeah.
That's the first time in my life I ever got sunburned, like in my life,
Dang.
because there was a pool there,
Were you shocked?
and I was like, what? Because we just came from a base, like
Yeah.
there's no sidewalks, it's like sand, and
Yeah.
there's a wooden basketball court that you're going to get hurt if you try and play.
Yeah. Risk your life.
And a subway. That was like man, there's a subway, we made it.
Yeah.
And we get there and there's like ice cream and Pizza Hut, and dude, I spent 9 hours at the pool.
Wait, Subway, the sandwich shop?
Yeah, bro.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We shipped
Yeah.
them out. We commercialized our warfare.
yeah, that's right.
There was
So
You're like
Yeah,
a little piece of home.
yeah,
yeah,
it's pretty
true
funny.
story. No, but real quick, I will say about the deployment. at the time I came back and I was 19, and
Yeah.
in my mind at the time, I was a war hero. You can't tell me nothing.
Yeah, coming
I,
back is weird, right? Especially that first one when you do
and as
something
a
like
young
that.
dude, man, like I was in Iraq. What are you gonna,
Yeah.
like I'm home on leave, and these guys, I go out and hang out with my buddies at the whatever. These, idiots talking trash. I'm like, again, I wasn't like tooting my horn, but like I'm
Yeah.
thinking like, dude, you guys ain't nothing. Like again, that's a young man's mentality. I think at the time, and especially
Yeah.
I think it validated me to an extent at the
Yeah.
time because there's a lot of folks that have been around who had deployed, and I'm like, well,
And they
I at
talk
least
a
got
lot
that
and they
checked
talked a
off.
lot of shit, those people.
Oh yeah,
I'll say
yeah,
this much. I don't care if it doesn't sound professional, but in that
no,
time
man, I
frame,
don't care.
in that era, there was a lot of people dodging it. And it's different nowadays
Yeah,
because deployment doesn't even mean the same thing. And what you're talking about, the type of deployment you went on, we were surrounded by people that never even went. And you're talking 2 years into the GWAT, Global War on Terror.
yeah, we
And
were in the mix.
they talked all kinds of shit. And, where our streams cross up here in your story, I can elaborate quite a bit without stealing your thunder. But I
Do it,
feel you,
yeah,
man. No, I
yeah,
feel you. I think adjusting in that time frame, uh, it was our generation's kind of call to action, and some people answered,
yeah,
some people didn't. And in our
yeah,
subculture within the Air Force, in security forces, and other aspects of it, there's also a call to action. People would dodge deployments. People would, feign injuries. They'd do all kinds of shit to get whatever they could to not have to
yeah,
do their part. But that's bullshit because we all signed up to honor this oath,
yeah,
and it's a serious thing. Like when you swear an oath, to violate that oath is some shit. Like it,
yeah,
whether you swore that oath on God or whatever you believed in, you swore that oath and you
yeah. And they did it
signed it.
all the time, man.
Yeah.
I've seen it. For
So
I saw a dude who, uh, I'm out 3 times. He hadn't gone once,
yep.
and it's always like, oh, my back, my shoulder, bro. You're 22.
Yeah.
Like, maybe whatever.
And it's
I'm
one
with you
thing
there, but
if it's one thing if it's true and then it's just not for
sure,
you and you're out. But there's people that did that for a decade or more,
yeah,
and it was
yeah, oh
sad
yeah,
and pathetic.
yeah. No, I agree,
Anyway,
man.
so I feel you.
If you're
That resonates. That resonates.
Yeah, and if you're not, understandably, if you're not able-bodied, sure, get help. But
Yeah.
if you are able-bodied, you just don't want to go. I understand we all have our fears, but
Yeah.
you got to get over it. I was excited to go because our team was picked. So they're like,
Right.
"Hey, we're picking X amount of people from your base." And like when I got picked, I'm like, "Yo, I made the cut." Like
Yeah.
I, and that for me again, not that I needed it, but it always feels good to make the team.
Yeah. No doubt.
So doing that, great time there. Some good people there, some not so great people there, but that's just life. There's good and bad people.
When you
But yeah,
got
that
back
I
to
think
home base, how much longer were you at New Mexico?
I got orders to Korea when I was deployed.
Oh,
So
what?
I got back in July. I left in October.
Jeez.
So and they were
Jeez.
mad. There was a dude who had been in Kirtland. He was a scumbag, but he had been in Kirtland for like 15 years. He's like, "How did you get orders?" And I'm like, "I'm going to Korea." But
Yeah.
he's from there, so he didn't want to leave. But he wanted to complain about somebody else leaving.
Yeah. No doubt.
So I came back. I worked for a bit, but they're like, "We're not, not that they didn't invest in me, but they're like, you're leaving, man.
Yeah.
Like, get ready to roll out." So, oh, and the other thing was, I won't say the commander's name. I don't even remember. But when we got back, our commander was like, "You guys earned Army combat patches. You're gonna wear them." I was wearing an Army combat patch and an Air Force uniform on an Air Force base doing Air Force work.
Yeah.
And to me, again, as a young man, I'm like, this is my actual chip on my shoulder. I never even thought about it
Yeah.
that way, but this is my actual chip on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Like, dude, what are you gonna tell me, finance guy? Like, you see this? I never
Yeah.
said that to anybody, but that's how I felt. I'm being
Yeah.
honest, man. It really, I really felt like, man, I'm like, I had some type of,
You were just
I
proud
don't
of
know the
it,
right word, but
You
yeah,
earned it,
yeah,
man.
like this is real. It was a real thing versus
Yeah.
like, hey, I actually did something. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of younger guys that have deployed I've talked to them over the years. When you're younger, it's like,
Yeah.
man, it's the haves and have-nots.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess that's the way I look at it. All the other
You
people were have not. So
paid your
I'll,
dues.
I'll
Yeah,
yeah,
paid
yeah,
your dues, exactly.
for sure. So fast
That's
forward after that, I
yeah.
went to Korea,
Yes, sir.
October. Um,
Was that '05?
yep,
Yeah.
yep, October '05. I was sharing an actual room with a dude who's a firefighter. When you PCSed in, that was when they had the airman quarters in your lodging, your hotel. So I
Yeah.
had a roommate in my hotel room, which is
Yeah.
crazy to think about now. Like there was another person in another bed in my room that I didn't know.
Yep.
Uh, come to find out, yeah, Korea was a nightmare. But that dude was a firefighter, and we would always get in fights with the firefighters. So it was always funny. Uh,
Yeah.
can can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah.
Okay, it cut for a second. Yeah, so it was always funny because like we get in big fights with the firefighters, and I would like see him in the middle of a fight, like, "Oh, what's up?" And then I'm fighting his boys. He's fighting my boys, right?
Down at the
Um,
bars.
yeah, it was crazy. So get to Korea, and I distinctly remember, man, I showed up to Korea and I had that combat patch on,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna use some French, so pardon my French.
No, you're good.
Uh, you can bleep it out if you need to.
Nah.
This chief, where I'm the morning. I got in like 2 in the morning. I had to be in processing the next day at like 7. So 7 o'clock, I roll in with my folders, all this stuff. So they bring the chief in, and everybody that was there knows this chief, big dude, big black dude. He
Yep.
always had a comb in his pocket. He always combed his high and tight. And he's
Was he
talking. He looks at me. Go ahead.
was he a chief then or a senior?
I thought he was a chief. Big tall black guy with glasses.
Yeah, he was the chief. His wingman had a similar notorious behavior.
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about?
no, it was the chief. It was the chief. And older dude. And he's talking to everybody. We're all like in the classroom.
Yeah.
And he's talking and he looks at me, stops. He's like, "What the fuck is that?" I'm like, "Excuse me?" Because I'm a
Yeah.
19-year-old war hero. Who are you talking to? And he's, "What the fuck is that on your shoulder?" And I said, "Oh, this?" I said, "Oh, you're talking about my army combat patch that I got
Yeah.
in Iraq? That's what you're talking about?" "Yeah, take that shit off."
Jeez.
I said, "All right, Chief, Roger that." He's like, "That shit better be off by the next break." And I'm like,
Damn.
"Okay." I didn't have a knife. I literally had 3 hours of sleep, and I, probably cut myself shaving.
Yeah.
So I figured it out. I'm like peeling it off with a pen. I'm like, "Damn, I guess you can't. I guess this doesn't matter here." So I got humbled real quick.
Yeah.
But
When
why?
I got to Korea. Yeah.
Why would he do
Um,
that?
it's not authorized.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Oh,
wasn't authorized it wasn't authorized for wear on our uniforms.
Yeah,
wow.
There are special. Go ahead.
there's a lot of rules about where you wear your uniform, and they've changed over time. But
Yeah.
back then, people would correct you and not give a shit.
Yeah. Oh, in front of the class, though, it was like,
Yeah.
oh, all these new people, and I'm like, he kind of fried me a little bit.
Yeah.
So I got it off. When did you get there to Korea?
I had been there already. I got there in June of '05.
Okay. Yeah, so I had a good time in Korea. I mean, for everybody that knew me in Korea, I guess I probably owe some of y'all an apology. Um,
I think we
it
all
was
have
just it was a
a few
wild,
people that we owe an apology there.
yeah, man, it was just a wild times. I was 19, maybe 20. Yeah, I think I was 19 actually, 19 or 20. But either way,
Yeah.
um, good time there. I got there with 12 people. I remember that.
Yeah.
And of the 12 people I got there with, 11 of us got in trouble.
Jeez. Did you arrive on a Tuesday?
Hey,
I don't
it was that
remember.
one guy who didn't get in trouble. That was the snitch.
No. I know the guy didn't get in trouble. He wasn't a snitch.
I'm just kidding.
He got in trouble. He got in trouble. He just didn't get caught.
See, that
He,
goes back
he
to
didn't
the
get
street.
punished, I
That goes back
guess.
to the street rules, Sean.
Yeah.
There's a lot of truth to that, but maybe
Uh,
not in this circumstance.
yeah. Korea was wild,
I'm
man.
just
That
joking.
was like
It was a
that
different.
was like my that I would say Korea was my college experience.
Yeah.
In the sense of like we're a bunch of young people, there's no families there. I didn't have a family at the time. And that was kind of my like, yeah, we partied a lot, we worked super hard. We learned a lot. I made a lot of really good friends there. that was kind of what I would equate to like my college experience if
Yeah.
there was one to be had.
What
Yeah,
shift?
met you
What shift
there.
were you on? Just
Man, I
did you
remember
move around?
Avenger flight.
Yeah.
I worked Avengers, um, which was I think nights for a little while.
Yeah.
It's all a blur, I'll be honest, man. I remember working nights on shift, just the base shift.
Yeah.
And then I do remember end of that year, December '05 to January '06, all of the dispatchers were leaving, the desk sergeants.
Yeah.
And so they made me one. And I was an
Hmm.
A1C, I was an E3. And that was
Yep.
very uncommon for an E3 to be a dispatcher. But they
Super
were like, hey,
uncommon.
we're leaving, dude. Like, we need somebody and you're gonna try it. I'm like, all right. So I did that. And the dispatcher on the Air Force side, I mean, I guess it's similar to civilian dispatcher, but it's 911 calls, it's the radio, it's the bat phone that rings if an emergency happens, it's the alarms. I mean, it's a lot. And a lot of times it was like one person. You're lucky if you had a second person up there.
Yeah. Do
So
you?
I had to learn real fast.
I want to ask if you remember this. Were you maybe working the desk when one of our guys got shot in the leg by a 249 at
No,
changeover?
no, that was right before I got there.
Okay. See, I had been
Because the
drink.
dude, I met
I
the
was.
guy. I won't
Yeah.
say his name, but yeah,
Yeah. I won't either. We went to Techschool together, being the guy that dropped the gun.
yeah.
But
Oh my God.
also my roommate was my friend. He's still serving, and he was in high school with my cousin actually, who was a Navy vet.
Wow.
So we were buddies, first few months in Korea, you know, going out to drinking and stuff like that. And then we got split up on different shifts. And
Hmm.
I was out one time just having some drinks, and the town patrol stopped me, and they're like, "Hey, your buddy got shot in the leg. You need to get back to base." So I'm like freaking out, Couldn't remember
Yeah.
if you were on the desk for that one or not.
No, no, no. I met that guy because I just thought it was odd. There was this dude who was an E1
Yeah,
and he had a lot of knowledge. And I'm like, man, this guy's kind of sharp. He's like, no, I dropped a gun and shot my friend in the leg. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, sorry to
yeah.
hear that.
I don't
Uh-oh.
know. Yeah, I don't know if he ever rebounded. He did get to Article 15, which is like for Sean and anybody that's not familiar with the military, it's called a non-judicial punishment. So the
Mhm.
commander's authority to discipline somebody before they go to a court, right? So kind of like getting fined by your boss instead of your boss taking you to court, in a sense. So he got the harshest punishment a commander could give. I don't know what happened to him afterwards, but certainly what happened to my friend was half his calf got blown off and he had to go.
Yeah, man.
He got medevaced out, and but he
Wow.
rebounded his career, and he's still security forces actually.
Good. They took him to
Yeah,
Hawaii, right?
yeah. He flew him out to Hawaii, so it was weird because I had no roommate for like 4 or 5 months, and then I
Yeah,
had
it must be nice.
then I
What
had a slew
happened?
of roommates. Yeah,
The gun just fell out of his hand or
it
something?
was improperly loaded.
Dang.
So it was a light machine gun. It was improperly loaded into a position where if it was dropped or something like that, which
Yeah, I
was
think
what happened.
the bolt was to the rear, right? And he
Yep.
dropped it and then went
Yeah.
forward.
And there was a
Yeah,
round in the tray, and he dropped it. The bolt went forward and fired that round.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
Yeah, my friend was just standing up on the fence like this. He had his hand up on the fence, and he's just leaning there waiting for changeover. Knowing him, he was probably trying to hit on some chick or something. Then boom,
Fair.
big old hole in his leg. That
Shit,
was
he
one
got
of the.
lucky, man.
Man.
I mean, that could have been
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I don't.
yeah.
I know I had seen you at the desk other times during my town patrol time for sure, out and about and
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
as well. So yeah, man. Sorry
yeah.
for hijacking that. I just wanted to know if you
Bro,
were
no,
familiar
I'm
with that
good, man.
story
I'm not,
because
man.
that was a crazy one.
I was on. I rang. So I say the bat phone. There's a not to spill too many secrets. There's a phone that's connected to all these agencies, Sean.
Yeah.
Um,
hmm
and when something goes down, that phone rings and it rings. Everybody's line rings. And I was up there one time when dispatching that phone rang, and I'm looking at it, pick it up, and it was the call was that a pilot had ejected out of their aircraft,
Oh shit.
and
Uh,
they were in I think the Yellow Sea. Am I making that
Yeah.
up? God, don't
No,
bash me if my
no,
geography
Yellow
is
Sea
bad.
was to the west. Yeah.
All right, all right. Yeah, so this dude had ejected. they're like pilot ejected. You know, we got search teams going out. Blah, blah.
Damn.
And it's quiet on the phone, and there might be 12 agencies on the line.
Yeah.
And I'm young E3. I'm like, is this an exercise? And they're like, no, this is not an exercise. And I'm like, I was never trained on what to do in this scenario, right?
Yeah.
But I had to ask, like, is this like
Yeah.
for training or like for real? They're like, no, this is like actual. Oh, all right. Well, start making phone calls. You know, we took care of it. Not much we had to do anyway. They had search parties in Korea, and I think some American forces that went out and got them.
What was going on with them? Why did you do that? Like,
You know, I don't remember. It could have been anything. It could have been malfunction. You know, smoke in the cockpit. It could be 1,000 things.
it was just something was going on with the plane.
Yep. Yeah. So I don't believe that they were attacked and ejected. I think that there was just a malfunction and they ejected, because that's like I won't speak for the pilots, but that's like a last resort. Like,
So he just tried to save himself, basically, right?
yeah, like if you know there's an issue and the bird's going to go down, you know, you can eject and live, or you can crash in the mountain or crash in the water in a plane and die at 600 miles an hour. You're going to die. So it's one of those, but you only get, I think last check, you only get like 2 ejections per lifetime. Like it's really hard on your body. It compresses your spine. I mean, there's like serious health implications when you eject from an aircraft, but that's better than, you know, crashing into a mountain at 700 miles an hour. So,
you know, that's a good, I never really heard anybody break that down about ejections. And you think about majority of our POWs from Vietnam were from some type of ejection or plane accident, you know, and a lot of them incurred major injuries during that process, which worsened and significantly reduced their survivability rate while in captivity or evasion. You know, Lance Sidner was majorly injured during his crash, and you know, obviously they tortured him until he perished. And you know, but it's just something that popped into my mind when you're telling that. That's crazy. I couldn't imagine being on the desk and hearing that call. I would have done the same thing.
I had to ask. I was like, "Is this an exercise? We training?" They're like, "No." So yeah, get to Korea. Like Korea was a good time. You know, I got some good friends from there. I remember one dude, JB. I won't say his name, but you might remember him. Staff Sergeant B, tall guy. I remember meeting him, and he comes up. He's like, you know, I'm JB. Nice to meet you. And I thought it was odd because he just like told me his name. He wasn't like, I'm Sergeant so and so. And I was like, oh, this guy might be all right. So I remained friends with him actually for a long time. I hadn't talked to him in a little while. I hit him up. But I do remember chopping it up with him one day. I remember he was out there arresting somebody and fight at the club or something, you know. And I'm there on security, so I got a long gun. You know, I got my rifle and then pistol, and a couple other guys in patrol. They just got pistols, and he's like wrestling with this guy, and these 2 dudes are just like watching him. And I'm like, I can't really wrestle. Yeah, I'm not gonna wrestle with an M4 on front. Like that's a bad idea.
Yeah. And
he looks at them and he's like, help me.
Yeah.
And so they like snap out of it and like, you know, help him out. I just thought that was funny.
I've seen that a few times.
And
sad.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like crazy stories from out there. That's where like the camaraderie was huge though, you know, big time camaraderie. That's where I got to see and learn some of that, obviously from deployment, but I got to see and learn some of that, you know. Flight commander, I won't name his name, I'm still friends with him. Yeah. He's actually a colonel now.
I know who he is. He's a big dog in our community, man. He's doing good stuff.
Yeah, he's doing good, man.
He's still defender though, too, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He just put on colonel
the last cycle.
Back.
Yeah. He got selected on that cycle.
Yeah, he just put on though, like recently. Good. And I remember sitting there and you know, some shots come over and I'm like, and I look over, he's over there, he's got his shot glasses. All right, thanks, sir. You know, but it's just different. It was just different, man. But again, work was work. Off duty was off duty.
Some people kept it right though. Like, you know, they knew how to do that without messing it up. I was there for 2 years, so I watched people that knew how to do it without messing it up. Yeah. And tons of people that messed it up left and right.
Oh, yes. It was easy to mess up. Yeah. I mean, I've seen it.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. And like you said, the college experience, people that get stationed in Korea, That's true for a lot of them because I mean you don't have a car. You're you're there for a year. So
Everybody's in a dorm.
yep. And
Everybody.
what else are you gonna do in your off time?
Yeah.
Young adults.
Dude, the
They're
only houses on base, I think, were the wing commander and vice, if I'm not mistaken. So the
yeah,
dude running the base or the lady running the base, and they're number two. Everybody else was in a dorm.
yeah,
E1 through oh 05, oh
yeah,
06 even are in dorms. And I was like, that blew my mind when I got there.
yeah.
Like, what? Yeah, granted, the E9 dorms were a lot nicer than the E1 dorms.
Yeah, true.
You know, the
There's
oh
levels
05
to it.
dorms were a lot nicer than, yeah, but everybody's in a dorm.
Yeah.
So I'll keep it moving.
Yeah, yeah. Go
Apologies,
ahead.
man. I'll be talking too much.
That's what we do
So
on these podcasts.
get away from Korea. I took a follow on. I actually had a follow on to Clear, Alaska, which is no longer active duty. They don't send active duty there.
Oh wow.
Clear is outside of Fair, X amount of miles outside of and there's nothing there.
I
Like
got you.
there's nothing there. But I was excited because I remember like, oh, you're going to Alaska. This is cool, cool, cool. And somebody's like, man, the BH is crazy up there. So I started looking at BH. And mind you, this is 2006,
Yeah,
2005. The BH was like $1,200 for an airman.
yeah,
And I was like, oh, maybe 15. Like it was a good amount of money. And I'm
yeah.
like, oh, I'm gonna be rich
Yeah,
in
that's
Alaska.
that housing allowance on top of your
Yeah,
regular pay can make a difference.
yeah, yeah, that housing money. So I was taking leave. So I left Korea.
Hmm.
I did my going away. So I had some pictures of my going away. I had gold teeth. I had I think I had some green contacts
Yeah, I
in. I had
remember your
my eyebrows.
contacts.
Dude, I always wore like crazy color contacts to match my outfits. Whatever. It was a phase.
It was a phase, yeah. It
Uh
was the early
yeah. I
2000s. What are
think
you
I
gonna
had
say?
like two or three cuts and two cuts in my eyebrows. And because I was leaving, I was going to leave. So I'm like, man, I'll do what I want, right? So I
Bumping
got
fucking
to
bling bling.
man, yeah, I was living it up. Um so I got to Columbus. I took leave in Columbus and I was gonna go Columbus. I had plane tickets up to Alaska. I was gonna go visit my family, blah blah blah. And I got a phone call, like a weird phone call, and I answered, and I'm like, "Hello," and they're like, "Hey, Gooch," and I'm like, "Yeah, who's this?" It was I forget her name, man, for the life of me. It was a girl who worked at the personnel section, and she was
Hmm.
calling me to tell me that my orders have been canceled.
Damn.
And I'm like, what do you mean my orders are canceled? She's like, yeah, they're not sending any more active duty up there. Like, if you would have went up there, you would have been the last active duty person to go there. And I'm like, really? I think
Shoot.
maybe it's guard or reserve. And I'm like, well, where am I going? So I was gonna go Korea, Alaska, Wright Pat, Ohio.
Yeah.
She's like, well, you're just gonna go to Wright Pat. I'm like, where are you? And I'm like, well, I'm in Columbus. I'm an hour and a half away
Oh
from Wright
shoot.
Pat. She's like, well, yeah, that's where you're going. Uh, if she sees this, her nickname was Bucca. I don't remember her real
But
name. It was it was the staff sergeant that worked at MPF. She was super cool. But yeah, so and I didn't know how she got my cell phone number to be honest. But personnel
they have their
they have their
ways.
ways. Yeah. So I ended up going to Wright Pat. I think my parents dropped me off, if I'm not mistaken. So go to Wright Pat in Ohio. Wright Patterson Air Force Base is outside of Dayton, Ohio. It's in Fairborn, Ohio. Go there. I was stationed there for about 7 total years.
Damn.
I got there as an E4. I left as an E6. While I was there, I did three tours of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
All of those tours to Bagram. Different things I did while in Bagram. A lot of times I did work in like the base defense operations,
Yeah.
or
Which is the
a lot of time. I did spend a lot of time
deployed
there.
dispatch.
Yeah, deployed dispatcher. So I was in charge one of the times, not charge. I what's the right word? I help coordinate forces for the airfield, for the perimeter security, for you have at the security element on and off the installation. I had a hand in their responses,
Yeah.
intel, info. If there's bad guys, whatever the case may be, I had a hand in directing some of those forces.
Yeah.
One of my times there, I was part of, before it was a fast team, I was part of the aircraft security teams that would fly
Yeah.
to different areas with the aircraft. And that was awesome.
Hell
I got
yeah.
to see, Afghanistan is beautiful.
It is.
Except for when stuff's like blowing up or shooting out or whatever. But it's a really like pretty landscape. I'll say that.
Yeah.
And flying through we would fly to different places with pallets a lot of times on like C-130s because they can get in and out of places where like a bigger bird is not going to land at some of these places, like a C-17 or big planes aren't going to land at some of these places.
They can go quick, vertical.
Oh yeah. Vertical takeoffs for sure. I had a couple of those, and we would go and it would just be different supplies. We'd have a couple pallets in the back and we land, and they would come with one of the bases up in the mountains that they had like a pallet mover forklift, and that we would just sit there and they're like, come get one pallet, take it off. And it was long, and they stayed with engines running. So if we got hit or something, we already knew we had to do. We're getting back on the plane, buttoning up. We're actually rolling before we start buttoning up. So
hell yeah.
But I got to see a lot of different things, and that was cool, man. There was some places we went to. Like I remember being at, I don't remember the one of them, but talk about Haraj, Jalalabad, Kandahar. We're all over the place. Some other bases I don't even know the names of, or places. They weren't bases.
Yeah.
And I remember one of them, we landed, we get off, and there's like one side of the bird is a chain link fence, and then like a village. I mean, like right there. The other side of the runway, it was dirt, was a mountain, and it was like straight up.
Yeah.
And I get off and I look and I'm like, oh man, like we're gonna get shot. I remember thinking that, like, yeah, they're gonna kill us. Like, there ain't no way. And I'm not like a morbid person, but I'm like, I'm not even gonna see it or hear it coming. Like, and there was some vegetation, so it wasn't like, I'm scanning, but there's a million places that somebody could be, and I'm just like, well, if it happens, it happens, man.
It's a little mentally overwhelming when you're in those kind of situations.
Yeah. And, I'm like, well, I've had a good run at it. So,
it's like, if this is it.
Yeah, no lie, man.
Yeah, I got you.
So, but luckily, those tours, the people that I left with, everyone came back on those tours. Some of them didn't survive just in general, but nobody perished while we were deployed.
Yeah.
I'll say that. I will share a quick story about one of my deployments. So we had a guy complaining. You probably know, but when you deploy, they're going to come on the bird and say, all right, or even beforehand, hey, everybody E5 and below, come with us. And you're going to either load bags or you're going to unload bags for the entire bird. That's just how it goes. So we're leaving. This is my last tour. We're leaving. It was this guy's first deployment. He was about to get out. I think he'd been in like 4 or 6 years. He's an E4. And he's complaining. What do you mean we got load bags? This is bullshit. I can't believe it. And I'm like, look, man, like, it's just rite of passage. Everybody does it. Everybody here has done it. I don't remember if I had to do it at the time. I don't remember. But he got picked to do it. So long with the short, he's complaining the whole time. We're going through customs. He's like, oh, let me get your bags for you. Yeah, I'll take those for it. Just being real pissy about it. Yeah. Oh, hand me that bag, sir. Let me get that for you. And dude, it was just building up and building up and building up. He comes up, so we finished. He knows who he is if he ever sees us. We come upstairs. He's still complaining after he finished. I can't believe this shit, man. Dude, I went off. And Jay Wells, I don't go off on people. Yeah. It's a rare occasion.
Yeah. That's not true.
I went off. Dude, I went off. I was like, F-bomb this. And I'm like, shut up. And this is in the airport. Yeah. So we're at the terminal at Bagram waiting to go home. And I'm like yelling at this dude. And he's like wide-eyed, and I'm like, I was like, this is your first deployment? I said, some of us got 4, 5, 6, 7 deployments, man. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, everybody loads bags. Like, you got all your limbs. We're all going home. Like, there ain't shit to complain about.
Yeah, the longer you take, the longer we're here.
Yeah, exactly. And he didn't talk. We traveled for like 7 days. He didn't talk to me the entire time.
Yeah.
And we got back, and I pulled him to the side and said, hey, I apologize. My delivery was wrong. My message was not, but my delivery was wrong. I said, so I apologize. I was frustrated because, like, dude, we're going home.
Yeah.
And I've been in the mix since you were in middle school, and now you're complaining about having to load bags. Like it's loading, loading bags is better than loading bodies. That's for sure.
For sure.
So I've been on both sides of that. So like, don't, you are fortunate. And he's like, I know you're right. He's like, he said this. He's like, I was kind of butthurt about it, but I thought about it and you were right. And I said, cool. So we're good. There's no issues there. But that was just one story of keeping your cool,
It's
and
important.
don't let things build up.
Yeah.
Address stuff when you feel the need to at the onset.
Yeah.
So get through that, get through right pack, get through those tours in Afghanistan. I think my demeanor from growing up helped me in those deployed environments, in those scenarios. I think my demeanor helped me in security forces. I think those things kind of amplified and not amplified, but it kind of helped. It helped me do better in that career field. It helped me do better in deployed environment. But not understanding that there has to be a down or an off, and I had to learn that. Like it's okay to be like switch it off.
Yeah.
It's okay to not, because I was like super like, we got back and I remember going out to the club and I had a terrible time.
Yeah.
Because I'm like watching everybody's hands. I'm like scanning the room. I'm scanning the exits. Like it was overwhelming. And then the music's loud. It was like the worst time of my life.
Adjusting back from those environments is is complicated.
Dude, it was, man, I remember like, and we did it because it was like, you're not going to not go with your buddies who just got back from deployment. But yeah, so right, Pat, I got orders to Italy. Go to Italy. Still in security forces out there. Another critical mission. There's some critical assets out there that we had to secure. So I had a good time there. I'll say that. Still kind of getting my ground under me as far as what I want to do in life, where I want to go, who I want to be. And then from there, I kind of knew early on I wanted to commission to become an officer, but I think there I was like pretty close to being done with school. And then when I came back from NCOA, or excuse me, the non-commissioned officer academy. So, basically it's just one of the requirements that we have to have. Course. Yeah, correct. So I came back from the non-commissioned officer academy, and I had I had earned distinguished graduate from the NCOA, is what they call it.
Yeah.
And
top 10%.
I was like, I'm not, man, you know me. I'm not trying to boast. That I say that to carry it over to that kind of was the catalyst to be like, all right, now you need to get serious about putting your package in, like strike while the iron's hot.
Got you.
So came home with that. I did 7 classes in 6 months.
Damn.
And that might not sound like a lot to people who are like, well, I did that in college. Yeah. But I also have a wife, kids, a job. My wife's working at the time, and we're living in a foreign country. So it's not like, oh, just drop them off at your sister's house. No, like it was us. And got it done, applied, got picked up. From there, while I was there, I actually got TDY to Kenya, to Nairobi, Kenya. And that was during the time when President Obama was visiting Kenya. Gotcha. And they called up Italy and were like, hey, we need some support for the presidential security. I'm like, yeah. So my boss is like, hey, Gooch, you want to take some guys to Africa? Yeah, sure. What are we doing? And he's like, all right, here's what we got. Here's how number of people you're taking. You tell me who you want to go. We'll send them. Yeah. Which is unheard of. That's not normal. Yeah, just for folks watching, it is not normal for you to get to pick your team. Normally, you're stuck with who you're stuck with. So that was awesome.
Isn't being able to pick your team something special? Like, man, for real, like outside of it being unordinary, but like as the person that gets to do that, it's different.
It felt great, and I was an E6 at the time. My second in charge, if you want to call him, we were partners. He was another E6, Chris S, we'll call him. Great dude. And yeah, we picked our folks, man. And there was another team supposed to go somewhere else, and that got canceled. So they were like, hey, all you guys are just going to go to Kenya. So half the team I didn't pick, but the folks that I knew, man, I got to pick them. Yeah, yeah, it was great. Civilian clothes. I ended up going to finance and work, and I did a little research, got the stipend because like, hey, we're gonna be out there for X amount of time, like,
Yeah.
and we're civilian clothes. I don't expect my dudes to buy $80 511 pants.
Yeah.
Not my E3s, E4s now. So we ended up getting a stipend for the folks, get our civilian clothes, and that was a good ride. It was only like I say 3 to 4 weeks, but because of the number of people we had a pretty good schedule. I
Yeah.
got to go to the embassy.
That's dope.
A couple of my guys got coined. I actually went and
Did you guys get
and
to
it's gonna
meet the
sound
president while you're out there?
no
Come
way.
on. Sometimes it
No
happens.
way. No, a couple of my guys were on TV though. We made them buy beer. One of my guys is he was on TV, but he's like, security's supposed to be looking for the threat. This dude's
Yeah.
like turned around like watching the president.
I'm gonna find this clip.
Like, dude, turn around. Yeah, like
I'm gonna go digging for this clip.
yeah, dude, yeah. He's on there.
It's
And
funny.
he was all excited, man. So I got a couple guys coined out there, and then um we had to clear out a civilian apartment building because one of the Secret Service is like, hey, there's a thing in the window and we don't like it. So like when I tell you we cleared this apartment building right off the flight line, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean honestly, because you think about it, what if
Yeah.
somebody came in and was like clearing your house
Yeah,
that
no
wasn't
doubt.
from your country? You'd be like, what is this?
Who the hell are these
So
people?
not that fun. Yeah.
But you gotta
But great
get
experience,
but you
man.
get cleared by like State Department to do those things in those circumstances, right?
Oh yeah, I mean we had the proper clearances. It's just looking at it from the human standpoint. Like, man,
Yeah.
if somebody came to my door with a bunch of guns, I probably have a problem with it.
Yeah.
I certainly would have a problem with it.
Yeah, for sure.
But we got it done. Everything was safe. I got to work with Secret Service. I got to work with the Marines, the guys at the embassy, uh, finance. I mean, it was a whole and Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine. I mean, it was
Yeah.
it was all of them, and everybody's civilian closed out, so you didn't know who did what. Excuse me. And so that was a cool experience. And the dude that was running the mission, civilian clothes, I said, hey sir, here's what we need.
Yeah.
Because he said, tell me what you need. And I'm like, well, sir, we're gonna need a lot, not a lot, but a couple of things. He's like, hey, look, man, he's like, I'm not a security guy. I don't know anything about airfield security. I have limited knowledge. You're the expert. Tell me what you need.
Yeah.
I'll get it. I'm like, cool. I need 3 vehicles. I need this. I need this. Next day, 3 vehicles showed up. This and this and this. That was cool. We ended up getting a suite for the armory, if you will, where
Yeah.
we stored all our weapons at the hotel. I did place a couple firearms with some of our folks throughout the hotel, just because
Yeah.
again we're in a
Safety.
foreign country, but everybody didn't get one. So it was probably a couple of us had guns in our rooms, but everybody else kept their firearms in another room, and that was a shift. So like
Yeah.
one of your shifts was like, hey, you're gonna sit in the room and get room service, but you're gonna have a gun ready to go, and that's your shift. So good experience there. Some of my guys went on safaris. We went to like some more renowned restaurants, and I got to see some extremes there of where they put us, which was probably this. Think of Washington D.C. That's where we were staying at the citywise. Probably one of the nicer hotels. So think about one of the nicer hotels in D.C. Cool. We got that, and we drove through the slums where there's like kids sleeping in the street. Like, no lie, kids sleeping in the street.
Yeah.
So getting to see some of that. I got to see some of that while I was overseas, Iraq, Afghanistan. But there were some guys that I took who had never seen
That was
that
like
or
their
experienced
first
those
deployment.
things. Sure. And they got to see like, oh, like, hey, is that kid dead? No, he's not. See, he's breathing, but he's just sleeping in the street. It's a different and it wasn't very far away.
Yeah.
We're talking 15 minutes, 10 minutes. There's people living in the median. Like, that's their house. Not like, oh, they're just shot. Like, they actually live in the median of this highway.
Yeah.
Like structure, So, but yeah, getting to see that, it was a great experience. So from there, I actually got a phone. I found out before I left that I was going to OTS, I think. And then while I was there, I got called about getting promoted. So I had made E7.
Yeah.
So I get a phone call, again, part of my French. Commander calls. He's like, what the fuck you guys doing out there? And I kind of knew because, when promotion lists are coming out, but also I did have, I'll glaze over this. I did have a guy try to do some inappropriate stuff with a
Mm.
local person that I had to take care of. So it was some of that, but I'm like, we talking about, sir? So, so he kind of gives me the runaround, and he's like, "Hey, congrats! You made Master Sergeant. That's the Air Force E7."
Yeah.
And then I got superintendent in the background. He's like, he's an E8. He's like, "Yeah, congrats." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks." He's like, "So now you got a decision to make." He's like, "Do you want to be a senior non-commissioned officer, with some respect and dignity, or you want to be a punk ass lieutenant?" And I think I'll probably be a punk ass LT. I think I'll take that. And he's like, "All right," they're laughing or whatever. He's
Yeah.
like, "Congrats, we'll see you guys when you get back." So cool. Get back, spent a little more time at Aviano. From Aviano, Italy, is where I commissioned. I went to
Mhm.
officer training school at Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama. Got through that process. That's where I met some good buddies of mine. Actually, I
Yeah.
just did an interview with Mark on my YouTube Instagram page. It's called Restored Valor,
Yeah.
and I just did an interview with him. I met him at OTS
Oh
actually.
wow.
He was a combat controller, and then went to officer training school and then commissioned into a special tactics officer. So on the enlisted side, they have their separate jobs. On the officer side, it's more of hey, you're a special tactics officer, and you might work with pararescue, or you might work
Yeah.
with combat control, or you might work with special reconnaissance, or the case may be. So good dude, man. I met him there, and we had some good times for the most part. I think it was very frustrating at officer training because some of the enlisted folks felt like some of the stuff wasted their time. I'll be honest. Some
Yeah.
people felt that way. At certain times, I did as well. But I still think there's value in having prior enlisted members at officer training because uh, they can fill in the gaps
Yeah.
of training. They can fill in the gaps or the questions, even during the non-duty hours. I have one of my good friends. He Sam. He'll probably see this, but he stopped me. He's like, "Hey, like after we commission, do we get out the car at the gate and salute? Like when we're
Yeah.
driving in?" And I'm like, "No, like you'll get arrested. Like stay in your
Stop.
car. Yeah, stay in your car." You know, um, so it's that. I think it fills in the gaps.
Yeah, you
You
bring the
know, I,
cultural context of like and years of
sure.
experience of the front lines to
Yeah,
that classroom of people that are immediate leaders in an organization where they have zero experience, which is kind of
correct.
unique, like
Yeah. And
so
you're in
it's
charge out the gate.
and then like
And
you made master sergeant, so you senior NCOs are the job one of their jobs is to help mentor and groom young lieutenants and help them
correct.
become good officers and use that experience to mentor them. So you're going in with that experience, becoming a
Hmm.
lieutenant yourself and helping the others with those good perspectives. It's pretty cool. I like that
Yeah,
concept.
no,
I
it was
like that
good,
training
man.
concept of how they designed that. Hey, can we let's take a little break and then can we dive a little bit more
Absolutely.
into this and then some
Yes,
other
sir.
topics as well? Pinkies up. This before we jump back into the officer part of your story, I want to say that especially to those that are listening and trying to consider, which path to take, it's a tough choice, and it's also extremely difficult. Um, Two things are extremely difficult. One, promoting in the enlisted side, the first few times has its challenges, but once you get up to like E6, E7, it ain't easy. And
Yeah, sure.
there's a whole grind to it. But it's pretty much do your job and stand out and excel and take care of your team and do all the things and get your records right. And you can get in that conversation. But the officer thing requires so much. I don't even know how the OTS package gets to the finish line, but I started it before and I've helped a few others through that process and seen what it
Hmm.
takes. It's like a 24 tab binder, recommendations galore.
Yeah, it's a beast.
How challenging was it to put your package together and get it through to the finish line? And what did it feel like when you were selected?
Man, I'll be honest. So, once I started getting like I said, I knew I wanted to commission since I was an E1.
Yeah.
Um, and the initial reason was because I had a bad officer.
Mm,
So, he has since moved on from service. But I remember going to talk to him one day, and I said, "Excuse me, sir," and he spins around his chair. He's like, "What is it?"
Mm.
And I'm like, "Never mind." And
Yeah.
I remember thinking, again, I was 18. I'm a fairly even killed guy, but my brain, I'm thinking, he was a little guy too.
Yeah.
I'm thinking if I start punching this guy in the face, like what's gonna happen to me? And so I just walked away. And he's like, "Oh well, what?" What he said something smart. And I just thinking like, man, if this guy can be in charge, like I can definitely be in charge. I
Yeah.
mean, like the times 10, because
Yeah.
he talked to people crazy. And again, I'm not saying he's a bad guy. He's probably doing what he was told is correct. You're in charge.
Yeah.
You have to take charge. Don't let any of these people blah blah blah, right? So uh that was my initial like, yeah, man, I'm gonna be an officer because this, like, if I'm gonna stay in, I'm being an officer because this guy's trash in my
Yeah.
mind at the time. I'm not saying that,
Right.
he might be doing great things now, but sorry. Yeah, so that was kind of my initial of like, hey, why? Now we talk
Hmm.
about getting the package together. I hadn't really started getting serious about it until, like I said, till basically like non-commissioned officer academy time frame.
Yeah.
And it took a long time. It took like months.
Yeah.
Part of that was on me. But part of that was because I believe it is an arduous process because they want to weed people out.
Hell yeah.
Because it sucks to put a 3 or 4 page resume together, 5 page. It sucks to put together a sheet that has to be formatted exactly this way with exactly this many spaces, and like
There's
that's
people.
garbage.
There's people hearing you talk about how many steps there is right now that have already quit just because of that.
Yeah, not doing that. Yeah, ooh, for sure. And
Dude,
I'll
I'm
say
telling
this.
you,
So
that was a big,
uh,
big thing, a big challenge for the guys that I've talked to. Oh, I really want to be an officer. That they have all the right
sure,
talking points. And then I
yeah,
was like, here, let me send you the stuff. And it's like 19
yeah,
attachments. And then
yeah.
and I never
Get
hear
these
from them again.
37 pages together.
Yeah.
Oh, officers are dumb
Oh,
anyway. This is
yeah, yeah.
stupid.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Oh,
like
yeah.
it was
Do it,
tough,
dude.
man. I'm not gonna lie. And
Yeah,
and I did it at the time where, so back in the day, you could go to the education center and they would assist you.
that's true.
And then I believe they submitted it. I could be wrong.
It might.
I
I think it
was,
did go through somebody in like FSD,
yeah,
in
yep,
the development side of the
yep.
force support or services community.
So when I was doing it, I think we were the first, maybe second. I think it was the first where they had stopped. There was no longer force development involvement. It was all on the member.
Yeah,
And I literally submitted online. Like I uploaded these documents into their system.
yeah,
So
and
it
just
wasn't
wait.
like a checks and balances. It wasn't like, oh no, this form needs this. It was like, hey, let's see. And I believe it was strategic. Let's give clearer guidance and then see what these people come up with. And I do believe that that's a discriminator
Yeah,
of, not in a negative way, of just like, hey, you can't even put this package together. Well,
right.
you you're not in.
How are you going to
Is
write
that
a policy?
fair?
I mean, how are you going to write a policy? How are you going to do a
Yeah,
mission plan? How are you going to
sure.
write up somebody's discipline? It's kind of like the root competence an officer needs is to be able to be an administrative expert, a communicator, and well organized,
Sure.
and the best of that group. Because people that apply
Now,
for OTS don't suck. These are the best people we have.
I can't agree. If I agree, it makes me look pompous. But no,
No, but generally, there's outliers.
yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah,
outliers,
yeah.
but just
Well,
for
and it,
context, for Sean, who's not part of the community, and for any listener who's not part of the community, people that apply to become a commissioned officer, you can't just be like, I want to do it, and just send your name into a hat. It's just uh, an application that is meant to recruit the best of the best people, and so you're competing for these limited positions to go do a very important job for our country, and they're not just going to take anybody. So you get into that. Once you're into the group, now it's competing against these great
and it's,
packages and these
yeah,
awesome people that have done a lot.
it is super competitive. Yeah, that's true. Now, do we miss out as a force on people who may not be as strong administratively, but are awesome leaders? Yes, I think so.
Yeah,
Because I think you can learn admin skills.
for sure.
I think you can learn that. Now, some people are better than others. You know, I do think there's a small percentage of folks that we as a department have missed out on because, yeah, your package was not properly formatted.
Yeah.
Throw them to the side. But this guy or this gal might be awesome leaders. But again, it's one of those things you got to
Yeah.
play the game. You got to play ball. I say a lot of it was on me. It really was. Now, did I have assistants? Absolutely. You know, I had a couple guys who shared their packages with me as far as their board packages.
Hmm.
And hey, this is what we submitted. This is what it looks like. You know, here's some of the key points. Here's some things to highlight. And what I did for mine was when I sent my board documents to get signed off by my commander to go through the wickets, what I did was I basically wrote it for them.
Yeah.
That way, two things: it shows that I'm proactive, but also that, you know, if something comes to me and it's 99% complete, I just got to sign it. That makes my decision a lot easier.
Yeah.
Not that any of my leadership was on the fence. That's not what I'm saying. But it's like, hey, I'm not just gonna be like, hey, can you write this for me? Hey, can you write down my career accomplishments?
Yeah.
You know, so and what I did was, it's a club. You know, as much as people may or may not want to say it, you know, it's a club, the
Yeah.
officer corps. So, you know, why you're basically sending documentation in to show why they should let you in their club.
Hmm.
You know, and if I'm at least how it used to be on the active duty side, there were 3 colonels that reviewed the packages that came in. So now we
Oh,
have 3 colonels.
for the whole
Yep.
cycle.
And they decided top to bottom who's getting in, where's the cut line.
Yeah.
And for me, when I'm writing the stuff, I'm writing from the perspective of if I'm an 06 and I'm a colonel and I'm reading this package, what does this say about this person that says that they should be part of this club that I'm in?
Yeah.
And it, you know, it worked out.
And
So
they're hiring their replacements, you know?
sure, absolutely.
So
Yeah,
it only makes sense that they're going to carefully select that and on a
yeah,
certain criterias.
sure.
Okay.
So you know,
What advice would you give to somebody who's considering, um, you know, applying?
ooh, well, I would say, man, it's a lot. It's going to sound like cliche, you know, recruiting guy. You
That's
know,
okay.
do your best, but like actually, you know, like actually put your best foot forward. You know, I always tell people like everybody has bad days. You know, it is unreasonable for me to say give 100% every single day. That's not realistic.
Yeah.
Uh, in my opinion, it's not. But you know, if you are consistently giving a strong effort, you're not going to miss those opportunities when they come knocking. You know, you're not going to be a person that gets overlooked potentially. You know, when these things float to the top. You know, if you are consistently performing, consistently excelling, and it's not about. I think some people get it wrong where they want to make sure they outshine the guy next to them. Not the
Yeah.
case. That was never my intent. My intent, I started working when I was a kid. I left that out the story.
Yeah.
I was delivering newspapers, I don't know, let's say 9 years old,
Hmm.
10, you know, and I worked all through high school. I actually worked at Red Lobster. So shout out to
Shout
people at
out
Red
to those
Lobster.
biscuits.
Hey,
Man,
Red
I used to
Lobster,
bring like,
they got the salt and pepper mix.
yeah,
Yeah,
man,
man.
I used to bring
Whatever
like
it's
10 of
called, the
those biscuits
seasoning
home a
is
night.
Yeah,
yeah,
Red
their
Lobster.
seasoning go crazy.
Those
Yeah.
biscuits are
So,
fire. Shout out.
man,
Is it
but
lunchtime?
yeah, so,
Yeah, it's getting there.
so, you know, but I say it's just doing the work, man, taking care of people. It's not
Mhm.
about making anybody look bad.
Do
You
the
know, for
work.
me, it was just like, hey, I have a strong work ethic, man. So like
Yeah.
there's no skirting around it. You can spend a lot of time trying to cut corners, but like sometimes you just got to roll your sleeves up and get it done.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so I say continue to do that. Continue to go to school. It's tough, man. I went to school with 2 kids under 2, and I was working and my wife was working. You
Yep.
know, that's tough. But I knew where I wanted to get to and I knew what I had to do to get there. So it's like, do I just say, oh, this is too hard and I sit back?
Yeah.
And then let goals pass me by. No, man, like, yeah, it sucks. I stayed up till midnight, 1 in the morning, getting papers done. Got up at 5 for PT. Got
Yep.
up at 4 for PT. And sure, that's not permanent, but I knew where I wanted to get to. So
Yeah.
I say continue to just pursue those things, understand what makes you stand out. Make sure you are caught up on your professional military education.
Yep.
I had a lot of people, not a lot. There was a few naysayers when I got selected for promotion to E7.
Hmm.
Man, because I was pretty young in my career.
Yeah.
I think I made E7 at like 11 years,
Yeah.
which some people don't even retire as E7s.
That's true.
So,
I think most people in the service retire at E6. I don't know if that stat's still true, but about 10 years ago, I did a little
yeah,
research and I said the average service member retires as an E6 from across the
yeah.
DoD. So,
And for a dude making it at 11, I got guys that have been
yeah,
in 16, 17, 18 years. Well,
he's
how
a
did you
fast
make it?
burner.
Yeah, what do you just,
Who does he
but
think he is?
what I didn't do, I didn't close any doors on myself. So
Yeah.
I knew if the minimum stuff I needed was to get this done and this done, I had at least that stuff done as soon
Yeah.
as I could get it done. If there was a school I needed, I made sure that I was on a roster to get to that school, or I can
Hmm.
complete it online, whatever I need to do. So just being on the up and up on what you need to do in your career, and then leading. And a lot of people I've heard say, "Well, I'm not in a leadership position because I'm an E3. So how can I show leadership?" There's a lot of ways to show leadership. You can get involved in activities that are maybe not at work. Even at work, you can lead certain committees. You can run certain projects. You can run some certain events. I mean, there are ways to show leadership
Yeah.
outside of just chalking it up. I could have easily said, "Well, I'm a gate guard. I stand here and I make sure nobody gets access to the restricted area." Like, okay, um, but there's still other ways you can lead, and there's still other ways to show leadership because again, that's what they're looking for. If you're just
Yeah.
showing how great, if you're an awesome technician, that's great. We need awesome technicians, but that's not going to bode well for you on your package, on your board paperwork.
Yeah.
So, you just got to find those ways to lead and to excel, and at the baseline, meet the minimums as far as like, don't have any failed PT tests. That's going to
Yeah.
be the instant discriminator. Don't. Now I was at OTS with some folks who had Article 15s, who had been demoted, who had
Dang.
got punished. It's true. There was not many, but those folks turned it around in the absolute right way.
Right.
You know, so that's just another thing. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. I think, too, you had mentioned like you started turning towards that during your NCO academy and you had excelled while you were there. And, we try to, I think a lot of people gloss over those accomplishments or they try not to bring it up often because there's a lot of people that pursue those things for their selfish means. And so you get automatically, oh, you were this, and you're that. I never tried
Yep.
at any of our professional military leadership academies, ALS or anything until I got to NCO Academy. When I went there, kind of like you, I was just locked in. I said, I'm going to do the most out of this. This is a leadership course. At the time, the Air Force wasn't sending people of my years in service. Right, I had been 14 years in.
Yep.
And they were like, yeah, you're too old. You've been in too long. You're just going to do this correspondence shit. And then all of a sudden, one day I walked into the desk and my guys are like, did you see the email from Chief Wright, our Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force? They called him Enlisted Jesus. So
Yeah.
I don't know if he likes that or not, but whatever. Now he likes K.
Yeah.
Wright, but you can't
Yeah.
change history. The memes win every time. But he sent out an email that said that's no longer a rule. Automatically now, if you're E6, whatever, meeting these criteria, you can go to the course. I said, hey, this is a game changer. And the reason being is I had at that point was going up for E7 myself. And so I'm trying to bring this towards like the conversation of giving yourself a chance at being considered for an OTS. Is a lot of the parallels to being successful in an enlisted career, making promotions and such and such. And I've followed this rule ever since that time frame, and it kind of exactly the things you're talking about. So I'll go to the course locked in. I come out with accolades, those certainly go on my records. And now it's between me and one other guy who's going to get the promotion score for that next cycle. And those were the
Yeah.
things. Those were the things that edged it out. He had a degree. I had a degree. Okay, you led this event. I led this event. We were like neck and neck on all these things that we had poured into over the last year, and friendly competition. But everybody's trying to eat and everybody's trying to do their best.
Yeah.
Leading is tough, and you're leading alongside other people that are equally working hard. So to be fair, when you pour into those things and you come out with things, they can lead certain places, makes your record stronger. Those accolades from NCO Academy helped me. There's no doubt in my mind that it probably helped and strengthen your OTS package.
Sure.
If you're serving now and you're on the fence and you're this guy who's, oh, I don't want to do this and that, you're missing out. You're holding yourself back. And I think that, that compares to the civilian sector too. A lot of guys in the civilian sector, they don't continually train. They don't continue their education. They don't pursue more. They just come to the work and they just do the job. They're not trying to grow and things like that. But to tie that back together, that was my point of sharing my experience, and I see that continue to work for me and my people, with a lot of success, including a couple guys in the last few years getting to OTS and promoting and such.
And it matters, man. Like you said, it's a discriminator. Because all things being equal, if you got that one extra thing that puts you over the top, and again, it's not saying, well, I'm better than them. No, you did this thing, you got recognition for it, but I like what you said about, people taking those extra steps and continuing. I told people, I've been telling people, if you show up to work, you do your job and you go home, your reward is your paycheck.
That's it.
You get 2 awards a month, first and 15th. So you can't come crying and say, well, how come I didn't win this award? Well, what did you do extra? Well, how come so-and-so won the award? Well, so-and-so is taking college classes. So-and-so is leading events. So-and-so is a blah, blah, blah committee lead, right? What are you doing? Well, I show up, I do my job well, and I go home. Well, your award is the paycheck.
That's 90% of people.
Yeah, dude. If you want to do more for yourself, and I don't mind those people. I personally don't.
I don't either. I want
them to get better. Go ahead.
What I do mind when people start, the phrase "comparison is the thief of joy."
Oh yeah, I say it all the time.
So if you sit there and you do, and that's you, and you're in that 90%, you come to work, you do your thing, you can't, you don't have a good stance when you start complaining about others succeeding and doing this and that, because those people are also coming and doing the work. They're also getting that paycheck, but then they're doing that extra, and that extra is it's not just for them. It goes somewhere. The event wouldn't have happened without them. That mission wouldn't have happened without them. That job wouldn't have been completed without them taking that extra time. So yes, it does. It's not always easy to find those opportunities, but you have to sometimes look without to grow within. So
yeah, I like it.
Yeah. But that's wanted to expand on that OTS preparation selection stuff a little bit. But if you want, and I'd like to kind of jump back in where you got your commission and, with your friend that you'd interviewed in your last episode on Restored Valor. That's where we left off before the break, and I kind of reintroduced a little bit of a different topic to get us going, but we can jump back into that and press forward. Sean, do you have anything else on that before we jump into that?
I was just gonna say, it just takes going the extra mile, to stand out. I mean, if you just like the 90% that just do the 95 and then you're content, that's cool. But there's extra credit in school. You know what I mean? There's
those
the
parallels,
more you put in, the more you get out.
In your civilian employment, do you see parallels to things like that and people getting selected for other positions or other contracts and things?
Yeah, all the time, bro. Like the more you show your skill, the more you add to your skill set, the more you're opening up your horizon. Like you're gonna get more opportunities for sure.
Dope.
Keep your mind open, keep absorbing what's new, stay updated. You will land good opportunities
Nice.
as long as you're prepared.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And like I said, and I'll continue my OTS, story, but quickly, I don't have a problem with the folks that show up and do their job.
Mm-hmm.
They get a paycheck, as long as they're meeting the standard, I don't mind. Now, do I want them to do more and do better? Sure, absolutely. But I can't fault them for doing their job. Certainly not. But it's just one of those things where, like you said, you can't do the minimum and then complain about somebody who's excelling, who's doing way more than the minimum.
Yeah.
So, if you're content and you say, hey, look, I'm just here to do my 9 to 5, or whatever your hours are, I got no problem with that. As long as you're doing what I asked you to do. If you're a supervisor, you're taking care of your troops, cool. Thank you for your service. You get your first and 15th paycheck. Doesn't bother me. Now, obviously, I want folks to excel and succeed, so
right.
I do my best to get them there. But I can't knock someone. I can't knock someone for doing what they signed up to do.
Yeah.
Now, do I want them to do the extra? Do I want them to do more? Do I want them to take those extra challenges and leaps? 100%. But at the end of the day, if they're doing what we asked them to do at the baseline level, I can't punch them in the gut for it.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, but yeah, spinning back to the OTS thing. OTS, get there. I get there pretty well there. I showed up. I kind of got in trouble like the first day because they have training instructors, they're drill instructors, and I'm walking by this guy, and you're supposed to say some greeting that they haven't taught you yet. So I walk upstairs and I see this captain. I said, "Oh, pardon me, excuse me, sir." And I keep walking a bit, and I see the other guy, the TI, and I said, "Oh, disregard, excuse me, gentlemen." And he goes, "Disregard." He's like, "Are you giving a commissioned officer an order? You're gonna tell this captain to disregard?" And I'm like, I kind of like roll my eyes. I'm like, all right, sure, So anyway, so we get in process. It's a whole thing, man. They teach you some of the basics. You good, Jay?
Just bumped my desk a little too hard.
Oh, all right.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. So, they give you the basics of room inspections, marching, leadership, Air Force history, some strategic stuff, high level Air Force things that, are some of the baselines for general knowledge for Air Force stuff. There's a confidence course. There's like a ropes course kind of thing. What else did we do? Yeah, it wasn't bad. It was like, it was some formal training with some, PT sprinkled in. Obviously, we did PT probably 4 or 5 days a week. Actually, I think 5 days a week.
Dang.
Early mornings. Yeah, like 4:30.
That's pretty consistent.
Yeah. Which was good, because you get up, you work out. It's just part of the day, it's just part of the day. It's kind of ingraining especially for the new people, just making sure that they understand that that's important and then build that time into their day. That is part of the day of a military officer, or at least it should be. So get through that, graduate from there, go on to Edwards Air Force Base, California.
Yeah.
There was some good people out there at Edwards, man. I'll say that. I met some really cool people out there.
There's good and bad out in the middle of nowhere.
It is. And a lot of people don't know that. So Edwards is in the middle of nowhere because what they do there, they do testing. They do aircraft testing for new systems. There's a test pilot school out there where they're doing a lot of really cool stuff that they don't publicize. But I believe, this is not confirmed, but I believe they're doing it out there because if we're going to be doing test pilot stuff with aircraft, we don't want people crashing a plane in downtown LA. So if they're going to go down, it's a lot better to go down in the desert than
That's over there. City. Is that the one by Lancaster and
correct?
That area over there.
Yeah, Rosamond, Lancaster. And so I believe that's why. So Edwards was cool. It is in the middle of nowhere, for sure. I think I was in a little town. It was just a bunch of houses, grocery store, a couple of mom and pop restaurants. I mean, it wasn't much out there, but I had a good time with the people that were out there. I learned a lot there from leadership, good and bad, but any bad leadership, I think you can learn from. So from there, I went to Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado, which is now Peterson Schriever Garrison. I believe was the last time I checked. It's basically now just a big joint base with the bases in Colorado Springs. So went out
Space.
there. Yeah,
Everything
I worked
Space
out there in
Force
a
now.
bunch of different places. Had good and bad experiences there as well. Learned a lot. And then from there went to San Antonio. And then San Antonio did some work at Randolph at the Personnel
Yeah.
Center for a couple of years. Then did a little bit of work over at Lackland. Yeah, so just getting the lead and it's being an officer is not all what I thought it was going to be, but it certainly has brought challenges that I didn't know were going to be there, some that I had expected and assumed. And it's been a trip, it's been a journey, and I'm still on it. I'm still on the journey, so I won't say it's closed
Yeah.
or it's done. We all still learning, still teaching. I think having the enlisted perspective has been beneficial,
Yeah.
especially switching career fields. I'm in a whole different job than I was when I was enlisted, and I think that helps my case with just having the mindset of someone who's not in my current field, and I can tell them what the other parts of the service think, because they don't, if they grow up in their career field, same as in security forces, you grow up in security forces, you think like security forces, you think everybody thinks like security forces. Well, no, that's not the
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
Everybody does a thing a little different.
Get those subcultural norms, and you think that
Oh yeah.
that's the way it is. Well, yes and no. It's the way it is,
Hmm.
but it doesn't always flow over into different aspects of our jobs and in the big organization. So
Yeah, correct.
that's cool that I think that you're able to know how that has impacted your time as an officer, your enlisted time. What are some other ways you think it has helped?
Uh, Credibility.
Yeah.
So, I think that even if, and I was telling people this at Edwards, even if I was garbage as an officer, when I showed up and someone said, "Oh man, this guy was prior enlisted. He did 11, well, he did 12 years on the enlisted side." Immediately, there's going to be some folks that are like, "All right, they're going to give a little bit more credibility to me, even if they don't know me, if they never heard of me, they're still going to be like, all right, I at least know this dude came up on the enlisted side, so
Yeah.
we're going to give him a little bit more of an ear." And I'll say, in meetings and things like that, prior enlisted officers, in my opinion, are given a little bit more leeway. So like when I was a lieutenant, I could get away with saying stuff in meetings. Normally, like they're like, "LTs, just don't talk. You just sit there, you just
Yeah.
listen."
But you're bringing that experience with you.
Yeah, I could get away with being like, "Well, hold on, this, and this." And a couple, when I was new, I kind of chimed in. I had some folks kind of looking funny, like, I don't, even then, I didn't look like I was 22, but I also didn't look like super old. So it was like, hey, wait, did this guy like just join a little bit later? Is he still a new LT? I had a major stop me one time. He's like, "Hey, are you prior enlisted?" I am. It's like, "Oh, I can tell." He's like, "Yeah, you kind of," he's like, I can tell you're prior enlisted because, you kind of know what you're talking about
Yeah.
instead of like these other LTs who don't know what's going on. I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
thanks, I guess." But I believe that the credibility thing, and then
Yeah.
just, I think you get a little bit more of an ear, and rightfully so. Nobody owes me anything, but if I have somebody if I'm in civilian company and I'm in management, and I have somebody who's transitioned to management and they've got 12 years of experience,
Yeah.
yeah, I probably I need to listen to everybody, but hey, maybe I should lend an ear to this guy,
Yeah.
because if I'm talking about technical stuff and he's lived that life, let's lend him an ear, versus somebody who's just like, "Hey, I'm shiny, brand new, straight out of college. I'm in charge."
Yeah.
And there's nothing against those people, but it's just the learning curve's a little bit different.
Yeah. And they have a
Um,
different
uh,
path of development that they got to follow. You know,
yes,
it's
and I
just a
think
different lifestyle.
agreed. I also think it helped me where I think someone who's newer might get pushed around. I didn't.
Right.
I think a newer person might not be as apt to say no to certain requests or to certain things. "Hey, you guys need to be
Yeah.
doing this." It's like, actually, we don't. Actually,
Yeah.
here's what we need to do. I think, and that probably stems from just the experience thing. I know how the Air Force operates, or I did at the time when I commissioned. I still do, but
Hmm.
the time of commissioning, I know how things go. So I didn't have to like learn my job and learn the Air Force.
Yeah, that's a good point. You don't
I
have
know a
that.
lot of the Air Force stuff.
You're not a new employee and a new
Correct.
lieutenant. You're just a new lieutenant.
Correct. Yep. So that was
That's cool.
helpful because I think if I had to learn both, it would have been very
Yeah.
difficult. Learning a new
Yeah.
job and having to navigate leading. And then, let's say a 22-year-old LT. Well, on the enlisted side, who's 22?
Yeah.
E4s, E5s?
Well, once upon a time, times have
Yeah, I
changed.
know
It's
right now
weird
they're
now.
like E6, E7. No, I'm kidding.
There's like
Uh,
30-year-olds joining and stuff, man.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
This
That's
is
true.
it's crazy. It's like I think you can join up to like 42 now.
Wow.
I don't know
Yeah.
that's for sure or not. I'd have to fact
Yeah.
check that, but maybe
Because when
Google
we
will do
came
that
in, it
for me.
was 28. I
Yeah,
want to say it was
used
28
to be
when we
super
came in.
young. Some of it's
And
an
I remember having,
economy thing. Some of it's like the Air
yeah,
Force really struggling with recruiting, um,
yeah,
and
it's tough
just
times.
yeah, it's just a different environment. We're not in
Yeah.
GY anymore. We're in this weird phase. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's a symptom of all that, but it is interesting for us in senior leader positions to look at the employees and have assumptions. We're like, wait a second, I got to shake that assumption real quick because this
Yeah,
dude's
true.
this dude's coming in, and to your point, some of them, like most of them are, you said earlier, coming in with degrees, but they're
Hmm.
also coming in with like good experiences.
Hmm.
Like, hey, I ran a restaurant. Oh, I have, 10 years of, they know about customer service. They know about these things. So when you can tap into that as a leader or manager, you tap in, hey, look, you remember when you were in the restaurant business and you wanted to be successful, whatever, here's the parallel to what you do here now, working the gate, working the DFAG, working, on the flight line, customer service, this kind of things. There's parallels in a lot of professions that people come into our force with that can be employed. So it's good stuff.
And I think that comes with like knowing your people, and
Yeah.
and utilizing their talent. And that's good you brought that up. Leadership. If you don't know your folks, you don't know what they've done. You don't talk to them.
Yeah.
You're just like you can assume and say, oh, you joined at 35. Well, you must have not had nothing going for
Yeah.
you. You just this must be your last resort. No, there's
Yep.
folks that say, hey, I want to serve now, or hey,
Yeah.
I realized I've been through enough life now where I know, hey, those things are not for me, and I believe service is for me.
Yeah.
Um, but again, bringing that stuff to the table and then navigating that leadership, you got to navigate it because young lieutenant, a new person in the Air Force that's an officer you might be in charge of somebody who's as almost as old as your parent. And
Yeah.
then what? You know, and then you have to navigate that, or somebody who's been in for 22 years and they're like, hey, this is your right hand person, but you outrank them. How
Yep.
do you navigate that? If you have um, if you're insecure or you have things about you that that you need to work on, that can be a tough thing to navigate
Yeah.
for any leader, but especially a younger person, because it's like, man, this is my elder in the sense of, in the
Yeah.
community sense, or just in the sense of life, but I'm in charge of them. I have
Yeah.
to give them orders, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So it's just something to navigate,
It
man.
is.
But yeah, I think that having that listed perspective has been beneficial for sure.
Yeah.
It's the tougher road. A lot of people say, it's the tougher road to commissioning, but I don't have regrets, man. Like I said earlier, you can't change the past, change the future.
Hell
I
yeah.
got a question, BG.
Yeah, what's
When
up?
did you know you were a good leader? Like when did you, like,
Am I a good leader? No.
or like
Uh,
when did, I mean, you must have seen some bad leaders or something like where you decided like, hey, I could do better than that. Like, was there
yeah,
a
I
moment?
think the big one, like I said earlier, was the guy who I worked with who was just rude to everybody. But
Mm-hmm.
that was, I guess, more negative. And then I got to experience, man, it's like hot and cold. I haven't dealt with a lot of leaders that were like just okay.
Mm-hmm.
Usually the ones that I've dealt with were very good or very bad.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Man.
And it's you take from all of them. You take from the extremes, and you know I've said it a lot of times. I in a lot of scenarios, I might not know what to do, but I definitely know what not to do. You know,
Yeah.
I definitely know how to not, I definitely know what not to say to people during crisis. I definitely know how not to treat someone when they're dealing with, you know, a hardship. I definitely know what not to do when I have a customer come in and do X, Y, Z. So, you know, it's that type of stuff. You know, I don't think there was like a defining moment. I really think in the last couple of years, I kind of came into my own as far as, you know, being a professional, being a leader, you know, like, because I think everybody at certain levels deal with some type of doubt or self-doubt or, you know,
Right.
imposter syndrome or whatever, you know, the gamut of things. And I think that just over the years, I've really tried to treat people like people. I say that probably twice a week, you know, that I don't care. We should be treating the 18-year-old E1 with the same amount of respect as we're treating the four-star general, because everybody deserves respect. Now, if you operate in a manner that's disrespectful, different conversation. But at the baseline, we got to have that baseline respect for everybody. You know, I shouldn't help you because just because of your rank or I break the rules for you. You know, I'm here to take care of people.
Yeah.
You know, I've always done that. And then, you know, for my troops, it's like take care of them, man. I don't and want nothing in return. You know, there shouldn't be it's not a transaction. Well, hey, remember when I did this for you 5 years ago, man? Now you owe me one. No,
Hmm.
just pay it
Hmm.
forward, you know, because everybody
Yeah.
has had help at some level. Everybody needs help at a certain level. So, you know, it's not a oh, pat myself on the back because hey, I'm gonna shout out my accolades of all the things I've done for you. No, man. Hey, if you got people to take care of, even if they're not your direct troops or your direct subordinates, like take care of them. If you can help them, why not?
Yep.
You know, it doesn't whatever the case may be, you know, the money's not coming out of your paycheck. It might cost you some time, sure, but you would want that same help, especially if you're asking, you know, especially if you're, you know, if it's something that you have a need for, you definitely want, you're going to want that help. So just taking care of people with intention, and I don't know that you can teach intent. I don't know that you can teach intentions, because there's people that do things just to get things back. You know, people say, well, if you give, you get.
Yep.
Yeah, but you don't give to get. You know, I don't see a person that's hungry and give them food and because well, I know that if I give them food that something good's gonna happen to me. No, you give them food because they're hungry and you're in a position where you can give somebody some food. You know, and that can be used in a slew of ways, but I'm just using that as an example. So I don't
Yeah.
have a specific defining moment. It's just
Well,
yeah, just being a professional, taking care of people and
well,
just meeting them where they are, man. There's nobody owes you nothing. You're not better than anybody. That's something I tried to get across to people. I don't care if you've got 45 degrees and you're triple doctorate. You're not better than the guy who's got his GED. You're not.
Yeah.
You might have
well,
more, you know, you might have more exposure, more knowledge, more experience in this area, but it doesn't make you a better person. Because I know some great people who have no degrees. I know
Yep.
some horrible people who have doctorates. It's not just about school. It's you can
Yeah.
relate it to anything. We're talking pay or rank or whatever. You know, you're not.
Position. Yeah.
You're, yeah, I had to tell a young officer when I was enlisted, you're not better than the enlisted corps because they would say things like, "Oh well, they can do it. They're enlisted." Like
Yeah.
you don't get to do that. I'm not cleaning my weapon. I'm an officer. What are you saying? You know, like
mm-hmm.
it, none of my people are going to clean your weapon. Like you can clean it or you can pay the armor $20. Up to you. But we're not that we do that. Of course, we wouldn't do that.
I've never done
Uh,
it, but I
yeah,
laugh at everybody that
certainly
does.
not. Uh, but you know, so
Those people
there's
don't
no
even
really
clean
defining
them.
moment, but it's just yeah, I know, right? Just put it back on the rack and take your $20.
So
Shout
funny.
out to my
When did you
Cadam
decide
guys.
like you wanted to coach people into becoming better leaders? Like, what was that transition
Um,
like?
it was fairly recent. So
Yeah.
you know, man, I had a lot of thoughts about it, but I guess I never really wrapped my mind around like people don't know some of this stuff. And that's where I think
Yeah.
just some of the self-doubt came in because, you know, I would say within the last, well, I started the page I started my YouTube and Instagram pages, I think January of this year.
Yeah.
There's a
I
lot
have
of
been
great
thinking of,
content on it.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah. I, I have been debating doing that for a little while. I'd say a few months, probably, let's say summer last year. But I would always say to myself, like, man, people know this stuff. This is not like profound stuff. Like it's very basic, fundamental leadership stuff. But then I really started to do some like thinking and research, and in therapy as well, and just talking through some stuff with my therapist. And I'm like, I'm starting to observe like people, some people really don't know this,
Yep.
and it's not a knock on them, and then I really started talking through that and thinking through that, for some of our officers or some of our people in the military, you don't get a formal school, some of them till 4, 5, 6, 7 years in. So you really might not know some of this leadership stuff.
Yeah.
You may just not have been coached or told. Now, I think I had the advantage because being enlisted, some of the leadership stuff I've learned over my enlisted years and officer time, like, oh, okay, this is
Yeah.
just second nature to me. But I think for me, it was just getting over that last hurdle of like, no, man, people need to hear this. Even if they say, hey, I already knew that, and they turn it off. All right, that's fine. There might be somebody that looks at it and say, wow, that's a good point. I was talking to one of my guys last night just about like money, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I've said this in one of my videos, like it's in poor taste for me to talk about money at work in front of the enlisted corps. It's not because I'm better than them. It's not because they're worse than me. No, but like everyone can look at the pay scale, and an E1 coming into service compared to, where I'm at in my career, there's a large disparity in pay. Sure, people would argue there's a large disparity in responsibility. Sure, and at the end of the day, where the guillotine's going to fall,
Yeah.
on me and not the E1. Got it. But if I'm walking around and I'm complaining about how expensive something is, that's in poor taste. Because if I'm like, man, this damn wife's, Range Rover car payments, $1,000 sucks. And no, my wife doesn't have a Range Rover. But like that E1 might make $1,000 in that pay period.
I
And
wish
you're
more.
complaining,
I wish. I wish that
Yeah.
that. I wish that topic in particular was more ingrained into not just the officer corps, but senior enlisted as well.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, just because your pay scale is nice doesn't mean that you didn't make bad choices in the past. Maybe you're working through some
Sure.
stuff. So if you're opening up and you're having a conversation with people because you're being transparent versus flaunting things, even
Sure.
subliminally, right? Coming in with certain types of things, always going out to eat. Sometimes people don't even go to things that they're invited to because they can't afford it. You know
Yep.
what I mean? And then
Hmm.
how do they feel? It's quiet embarrassment in a way. It's a bottled up. It's behind the scenes, but that's what it is a
Yeah.
lot for a lot of folks. So,
Yeah. And if I may, man, and I hate to make I am not trying to make myself sound like the hero. So please
no,
don't take it that way. But I talk about that. Like we if I'm gonna have mandatory fun, if I'm gonna say, hey, everybody come out, we're doing this,
hmm
but I need $10 from you, $10 from you, $10 from you. I should not be having an event where my folks are getting recognition or we're celebrating them and then they're paying us.
yeah,
Like if I'm gonna have, if I'm gonna have a barbecue for my guys, I shouldn't be like, yeah, and don't forget to pony up your $5.
yeah,
No, just have a
Yeah,
barbecue for your guys.
I recently seen something like that online. There's a couple that got married, and they treated it like a concert. It was like a $300 to attend it,
mm.
and they invited like 300 plus people. Only 60 showed up.
Yeah,
The
and
difference
I
is
get it.
the difference with that, Sean, and like and ours is that there's a consequence for not showing up. And so
Yeah,
basically, like our junior enlisted employees or even civilians sometimes, they feel like they don't have a choice. It's implied that they're required to be there. And sometimes it actually is required for them to be there. And
yeah,
so, it's just people will start getting into you a little bit more. Whether, a person's wedding, that's a perfect example. And it does kind of happen like that here. Oh, we want to celebrate your success. Landing fees.
Yeah. Give
So
us 50 bucks.
they have these
Yeah.
events, Sean, where, you've seen maybe on my page and stuff for during promotion times or whatever,
Hmm.
um, that, oh, you got promoted? Cool. We're going to have a party to celebrate your selection. At that
Right.
party, you oftentimes have to pay some money up front to be celebrated. But the Air
And you
Force
have
isn't
to,
going to
a
pay
lot
for
of
it.
places have to go.
The
Like they
Air
make you
Force
go.
won't pay for the rental of the space. They won't pay for the items that are given out. They won't pay for the food. They won't pay for any of the stuff, but it's somehow culturally required. I don't know when this thing morphed into. It was sometime about 10 years ago. I had never seen this before that, right?
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
it's a weird cultural thing. And some places do good about having volunteers that go out and fundraise and stuff like that so people don't have to pay up front for these
Sure.
things, which I appreciate. And that's why,
Hmm.
private organizations, shout out to the people that make those things happen,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
this is a perpetual problem for a lot of folks that ties into this subject. I wish we could get away from it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
or if the Air
No,
Force
go
wants
ahead.
to keep it, pay for it, man. Stop making us
Yeah.
pay
Yeah,
out of pocket for it.
it's tough. And I've had to talk to some LTs, some younger officers that were new,
Yeah,
and just tell them, we had a going away for one of my guys, him and his girlfriend showed up. I paid for their meal. He was in my section. That's, to me, that's acceptable. It's not like I lost my best
yeah,
friend or buddies. The dude's an E4, man, and we went to a
yeah,
kind of a nice place. I am in no means wealthy, but it's, to me, that means a little bit more to that person, because he might be like, oh man, it's not going away, but I'm only going to get the appetizer because, no, dude, like have a good time,
yeah.
get what you want to get. And I didn't tell him I was going to pay. I don't remember. I don't think I told him I was going to pay for it, but bills came around, we took care of it. Um, but it's that, and then just telling these folks that I spoke with, like these young lieutenants, I'm like, hey, don't be cheap, man, because in this instance, let's say you're a single lieutenant who has a roommate, you're doing pretty okay on money.
Yeah.
And in these instances, man, like it's not going to kill you. You're going to spend a lot more than that when you go out on a Friday night with your friends. So it's not going to hurt you to spend $50 for this thing. Or hey, when we're pitching in to get this guy's
Yeah.
going away gift, like don't be the guy throwing $5 in, and your sergeants are throwing in
No doubt.
30. You gotta, there's got to be a balance there. And I'm not saying give away all your money. It's not that. It's just being mindful of the disparity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a lieutenant who would she would complain about just expensive. Oh, I'm flying to such and such, and oh man, it sucks. The plane ticket's $600, and yeah, but like you're going on vacation to this place that like this young E1, E2 has never been, and that's like on their goal list of
Yeah.
going,
Someday
and
when they
you're just
retire.
complaining about, yeah, like, oh, one day, when I save up my money for 2 years, excuse me, I can afford to go there, and you're just like, oh, this sucks. I just gotta dip into my savings, and
Yeah, most people
it
like have never taken vacations.
No.
Like,
yeah,
To this day, I've
and
taken one, and it was
yeah,
like
yeah.
an hour away
that's
for
a
a weekend.
luxury.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
again, a lot of these
Yeah.
folks, they don't some, I won't say a lot. Some of
Yeah.
these folks don't understand that. So it's just and that's just one aspect. And it's really, at the end of the day, I think it's really just like ego to the side, and
Yeah.
taking care of your people, and just having
Humility.
perspective. Yeah.
Be
And just
humble.
perspective. Like, what if you were in that
Yeah.
position, and, and you had to listen to your boss complain about, oh man, I can't believe how expensive, and you make 1/10 of what they make.
Yeah.
You probably
Some
wouldn't appreciate that.
someday they'll
Yeah.
graduate to that level of complaining.
Yeah, yeah. I always say it, man. First world problems. Like,
Yeah. Well, you know
Champagne
sometimes
what?
you
problems.
just,
This
yeah,
conversation right here, for anybody who's listening, is actually a good sample of the type of advice and thought-provoking subjects that you've been producing on your YouTube and on your Instagram page. The clips capture those little blurbs. I like that. Your videos, a lot of them are short videos on a subject. You hit that point. You always bring a good example. Um, and I hope to see your channel continue to grow, and we'll help you out with our shares and things like that, and keep
Yeah.
supporting keep
Yeah,
supporting
I
you on our
appreciate it.
side, you know?
Absolutely, yeah, and I'll keep supporting you guys too, man.
Yeah.
I do a little bit longer form on YouTube.
Yeah.
Same thing, Restored Valor is the name, but
Yeah.
so I try to, because I understand the different communities. If there's a long how-to video, I'll go to YouTube. I don't look for that on Instagram,
Yep.
and vice versa. So I do a little bit longer form on YouTube. It's usually the same topic, just expanded a bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll continue to do that, man. And again, I appreciate y'all for sure, because I just trying to bring some leadership perspective. It's not all military stuff,
Yeah.
and that's the thing that I'm saying. Like I don't want to just be. I have no issues with folks who do military interviews or talk about military strategy,
Hmm.
things like that. That's important, and I do tie some of that in. But uh, I try to make it as applicable just to the masses, because if I'm a new and leadership at every level, even as a new employee at Walmart.
Yeah.
There's still leadership to be had. There's still leadership to be learned. So,
All across the
uh, you know,
world.
yeah, and just through all of the different types of jobs and businesses that people do. So that's kind of what I'm gonna keep doing. I'm gonna start doing more interviews. So you guys keep a lookout.
Oh
you're gonna be
yeah.
some guests on my show.
Okay.
Um, it's just kind of one of those where I want to continue to do that, because selfishly I like to hear people's stories a lot more than I like to tell mine. But also, I think there's lessons to be learned. And some people say, "Oh, well, it's leadership." But yeah, everybody has their own take on it. Everybody has their own
Yeah.
spin on it and their own perspective and life experience.
Yeah. And what do we want to live? One life or 1,000? By listening and learning those
Yeah,
lessons from others.
yeah,
I definitely think it's important. Yeah, well, fellas, we are at a good point, I think, to transition into key takeaways. So, like, thinking back on our conversation today, BG sharing his story and some of the side topics that we tapped into throughout the conversation. Um, One thing I'll say, and I'll lead us off on the key takeaways, and we'll go full circle to Sean and then to you, BG, to close us out before we close the show. Is one, I'm super. It makes me happy to see my friends and colleagues succeeding and doing it the right way. So, congratulations on all your success. And I know the
thank
people
you.
that work with you and for you are lucky to have somebody on their team that is genuinely an authentic leader that comes from the right places. And it was great today to hear more about some of your upbringing stuff. We were, yeah, we were stationed together in Korea, didn't know each other very well, but our time at Right
Mhm.
Pat, when I was there, you were a person that I went to for counsel a lot when I was kind of going through some funky stuff there. And those
Yeah,
things carried me through a pretty good transition point when I became an NCO and started becoming a leader in the Air Force officially, as well.
yeah,
So you've been with me on my roots, and I know that meant a lot to me. So I know what it means to a lot of people in our community, and I love seeing you go through this period. Like the last time if we talked a few months ago on the phone,
hmm
how you're getting into public speaking, going out, talking to the universities and high schools and things. That's amazing, and I want to see what you do when that chapter closes on the military. You're going to do big things in the civilian sector as well, brother. I'm proud of you.
yeah. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Big Sean, what you got, man?
Oh, my bad. I was
There
on
he is.
mute. Um, uh, like you said, bro. Thank you for joining us. It's been a really good episode, and you know, thank you for your service, and I'm really liking the work you're doing on your YouTube and Instagram. Uh, sometimes you just need a little motivation or a little perspective, and you know, you back it up with your experience and story. So I think you're doing great work, and it was awesome getting to know you and your story, and hopefully we could do this again and discuss different topics. And it's amazing. Both of you guys are really doing great when it comes to leadership and coaching, man. I always go to Josh about certain topics. He always gives me good perspective, and I think you guys are very similar in that sense. So It's been awesome, bro. Like this was a great episode. Thank you for joining us, and yeah, keep doing great work. And I feel like you're at a beginning point with your what you're doing with your YouTube. I think it has so much potential, bro. Like all the content is gold. Like it's great. And
Yeah.
I think you're the right person too. Sometimes you just kind of fall into your role. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It doesn't feel
Mhm.
like it's it just comes from you naturally. So it's organic. I love it, bro. Like honestly, it's good
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. And like
I,
I've learned a lot, and I feel like anybody that watches this, they're gonna learn a lot, you know, like not just me, like a lot of people will get a lot of good stuff. And then if they just go onto your YouTube, there's a lot more. So keep
okay.
digging, you know what I mean? You'll come up on gold.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Uh, all right. I'll throw my inputs if you guys don't
Said it.
mind.
Yep, you're up.
No, I appreciate y'all, man. Sean, yeah, for sure. I appreciate the words, it's just one of those things I had to kind of get over the hump and
Mm,
just do it. And I've been trying to read some more, whether it's me reading a physical book or audio book.
yeah.
And I've been sharing a lot of people the books that I've been reading. So one of them was called The Courage to Be Disliked.
Mm,
It's
Damn.
I don't have the author's name, and I'll butcher it if I even had it in front of me, but I'll get you the details on that book. I shared it with a couple of people, and some of it is very hard lines, So I wouldn't say I agree 100% with the book, but it's really getting to the root of people getting their breakthrough, uh, and really having the courage to get laughed at, having the courage to be embarrassed. Whenever you're trying or learning something new, there's always that. And as much as people say, I don't care what people think, 99.999 to infinity percent of people
yeah,
care of what other people think. It's
facts.
easy to say, I don't care, but most people do to a certain extent.
That's
Now,
just
I
being.
think the ones who can succeed can break through the fear of dealing with what people think, or break through the letting that control them. Because yeah, we care what people think, but if we let it influence our decisions in a negative way, then we've got to get better at breaking through and just saying, hey, you know what? Sure, somebody's gonna laugh, and I had to get through that and deal with that. So getting started on my page,
Yeah.
sure, there's some people that watch and say, well, what's this guy know? He can't. Man, I used to supervise that guy. He sucks. Or yeah, I worked with him, and he can't tell me about leader. Like there's gonna be those people, man, no matter
Yeah.
what. I always said you can hand somebody 50 grand and they'll complain that you didn't give them 100. So,
Yeah.
in that sense, man, just so Sean, anyway, just I appreciate the words. I think I don't think you're making any of that up, and I'm around. I'll be around. As far as just the leadership aspect and taking care of folks in my life and my career. Whenever I go talk, so I've talked to a lot of schools. I know we really haven't touched on it too much, but I mean, I've spoken at Ohio State to their entire ROTC program. I've spoken to Texas Tech. Spoken of numbers of high schools, elementary schools, and I think to the different crowds, but kind of the meat and potatoes of what I'm sharing is, there's choices that you got to make. I could have easily made some bad choices. I mean, I've made a lot of bad choices, but I could have easily, my life could have looked a lot different than it looks now,
Yeah.
based on what I experienced as a young person growing up. If I wanted to get into the wrong things, I could have easily done that and easily been where a lot of my friends ended up, where some of my family ended up, things like that. And it's really about choices, and you don't have to do what you see. I'm not
Damn.
knocking factory workers. I have a ton of respect for folks that work in factories, but where I was living, yeah, my dad worked in a factory. Does it mean I have to? No.
Hmm.
I can go do something else. I can go sell cars. I can go, so there are choices out there, and sometimes you don't know the choices. I was very in terms of school and college, and I had a very narrow perspective on those things, just because again in my life I didn't know much about continuing education.
Yeah.
So I think it just let them know that there's choices out there. It's a little easier now. You don't have to go sit in a library and pull books and articles and things like that. You can just get online and type in how do I start a mechanic business, and go from there.
Yep.
So and I'm not Mr. Military Man. pushing that. The military has done well for me. I've done well in the military. But there's other opportunities that folks say, hey man, I want to be a race car driver. Awesome. Here's what you need to do to get there. Here's and there's choices there, and follow your passions. I think Sean hit on it earlier, but like this thing for me is none of this is like an act. I'm not doing this so I can say, hey man, let me if I study and do quick and get some money in and I can give you no, like I want to help people. And I think that shows through. And I think people that really know me, they understand that. Like this is not a gimmick. This is not like it's not a get rich quick scheme. I haven't made any money online yet. We'll say that. One of these days I'll get there.
It'll happen.
So yeah. So it's just that, and they continue support, Jay Wells, like I said, we've had some time together for sure, some hard discussions on both sides. And it's about that, man. Just being there for your folks. And, I guarantee you haven't had anybody come up to you in your life and say, man, Gooch told me all this stuff about you, man. And BG was spreading rumors about you, man. No, you're not. I promise you. Like it's not a thing. And vice versa, on the other side, nobody has ever been like, oh man, watch out, Jay Wells, that guy's, and he was putting your business in the street, because it's not, it's not that. It's just helping each other. And really just trying to help people grow. And then, again, like you said earlier, for the people picking their replacements, I believe that I'm training my replacements, and that might be in the service, that might be just in our community, it might be in our society, because time is moving forward. So, if I can help influence somebody positively, that's coming up behind us, whether that's somebody who's going to be the next guy running the line at the GM plant, or the next guy in the service running, missions, whatever the case may be. If I can kind of help those folks out, man, that's why I'm here, really. To help folks and hear and listen, share stories, and just try to help make everybody a little bit better.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, that's dope, man. I appreciate you taking the time to, and you know what, being vulnerable isn't easy, and telling anybody that comes out and tells their story, we got 3 hours, so we can't tell all the finer details, but you hit some big stuff and that happened in your life, and that's not always easy. Whether we get 100 people to watch this or whatever, anybody that watches it is getting a lens into what your life was like and the lessons you learned and where you're going, like we opened it up, talking about the importance of the future. Keeping in tabs to see where things go with Restored Valor page. How else what can people expect from you moving forward on your page and the content you're going to be working on?
So, I appreciate that, man. And again, the whole sharing my story thing, I'm not a giant fan of it online, but also I think it helps just to build some perspective, because I can't tell you how many times that I've heard or folks have assumed, since you're an officer, you had a silver spoon coming up, your dad must have been in the military, or your mom was in the military, and or they were somebody important in society, and you didn't really work for it. You just kind of got it handed to you, and that cannot be further from the truth.
Yeah.
So I just want to kind of hit on that. But also for the page for Restored Valor, I'm going to continue to put out content. I have a long list of videos that I've either made or I'm looking to make. More of them are not made yet, but just things that I find that are important, or just even things that I encounter in the workspace, where sometimes I'm like, hey man, I've really seen this thing a number of times. Let me talk about it. And it is kind of a release for me, because I get to talk about it on video, but then also it might be to help someone. So I'll continue to put out that type of content. I also want to shift gears into doing some interviews.
Yeah.
I will continue to speak. And when I do those speaking engagements, sadly, when I was at Texas Tech, I didn't have that great of audio video at the time. So a lot of that footage is unusable. But, regardless, I still had a positive impact on quite a few cadets that are up and coming who had leadership questions. And we had some great discussions. So I want to continue to do those things. I really want to do a little more interview and insight, where I can bring someone on, they can share their story, and then also, share their perspectives, their insight, how they lead, experiences that they've had. Because again, I think that builds the community up of, we all have our different perspectives. So I can ask you about followership and ask Sean about followership. and we all might have a different thing that
Yep.
we talk about, or a different example. So I think with that, it kind of keeps the content there, keeps it fresh, but it also helps to build up some of my other people. Let's say for this channel, kind of help share y'all's story,
Yep.
or just bring a perspective, or tap into another community. Like my buddy Mark.
Yep.
Excuse me. Hey, there might not be a lot of folks who have seen or heard from, like, what, Air Force has special forces,
Exactly.
special warfare? What is that? Yeah, I thought it was just the Navy SEALs,
Yep.
or the Green Berets. So it's sharing that story. So I'll continue to do those things. I'm really gonna hit that hard, man. The interviews,
Good.
the videos, and even if it's through Zoom, eventually, I want to get it to where it's going to be an in-person thing where, when I make it, I'll be like, hey, come fly out to
Got the
wherever
studio.
come fly out to wherever the studio is, and we'll make a few days of it, and
Yeah.
you just show up, we'll have a good time and chat it up. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm going to go with it. So
That'll be
continue to
good.
press.
Well,
Hell
wish
yeah.
you luck on that. I know you don't know exactly the ceiling of things like this when you get started, but you can't get there until you take the first step. So it's
Yeah.
good seeing your channel grow. It's exciting. We're in like I would say, I like to consider it a coalition, if you will, of small platforms rallying together, lifting each other up, and helping each other grow and have these kind of conversations. So it's great to have you in our community and sharing those things, and have you share your story here today, brother. What a good time. Um, we always say on this channel when we close things out, the importance of protecting your heart, protecting your mind. Sean, what else we got to protect?
Take your pin code.
All right. Yeah, that's how we
All
close it out
right.
every time, man. So thanks again for coming on the show. Everybody go check out from 2 weeks ago, early August, long form interview on Restored Valor YouTube channel. Get a taste of what this channel is all about. Thanks again, BG. All right, everybody. We're
Thank you,
out.
sir.
All right, gentlemen, take care.
Peace.